Well, welcome everyone. Very excited to GM a game of Vaesen. I have been in love with this setting and game system now for, a year or 2 years since it came out. But I've only ever had the chance to play in it, so getting a chance to GM it is going to be a blast. Couple quick things. Vaesen is, at its core, a Nordic horror role-playing game. So there will be some horror themes in here. If there is anything that is a line or a veil for you, in other words, things that you don't want to cross, or things that can be done off-screen, you can certainly modify that in your safety tools. So bottom, you'll have the little cog center of your screen. If you click on that, there is an option in there for safety tools where you can define what your lines and veils are. What I will say is there's already some that are set up for this game that you may have seen as you were logging in. There was a whole bunch of stuff sitting there that was highlighted for you in red. So things like harm to children, real-world religion, sex, sexual assault, torture will not be directly depicted in the game. They may happen somewhere off-screen. You may hear a reference to it, but it won't be something that's actually listed in the game. There will be references, however, to things like blood, self-harm, general horror themes, violence, things like that. At any point in time, though, if we are talking about something or role-playing through something that you are not comfortable with, please, that bottom left-hand cog, you can click on it, and there is an X card option. Did everybody just see that X card pop up on their screen?
Mm-hmm.
That's it's anonymous. I have no idea who posts it. I'm telling you that I just posted that one so you know that it came from me, but it's a way for you to say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this topic, and we will switch gears and go in a slightly different direction, okay? That being said, this first adventure delves into some common horror motifs that I think most of us will be hopefully comfortable with. If not, though, always feel free to either whisper me directly or use that X card at any point in time. So we are going to be playing in kind of our own mystical version of Scandinavia, set here at the end of the 19th century. This is... so we're going to, the game is predominantly in Sweden, but most of Vaesen focuses on Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. It's a version of our world that's entirely its own, however. It's a time and place that mixes events, cultural expressions, conflicts, political intrigue, and all of that from the entire 19th century, but it's in a way that's unique to the individual gaming groups. We kind of get to set that tone and build it out ourselves. You can use whatever you know or think you know about the 19th century. There's no right or wrong here. I don't expect folks to have degrees or have done extensive research on what it means to have lived in Upsala in the 19th century. If you do, however, have those things, by all means, we welcome it, and it's just a further way to build out and add depth to our game. As we play, we are going to be focused in on the city of Upsala initially, as we kind of introduce some of the game concepts. As we go along, please feel free to raise your hand at any point in time and ask questions. I will be referencing the rulebook as we go. Again, I have not GM'd this, so there are definitely going to be some bumps in the road ahead, but we will get through it together. Vaesen is a game that follows kind of a prescribed structure. So we will have things like a prologue, into the invitation to the mystery, preparation for that mystery, the journey to the location, an arrival, an introduction to the various places in the mystery, the eventual confrontation that the mystery itself focuses around, and then the aftermath of the results of how we've handled it. I will give this warning one more time. I know I've made it a couple times when I've talked about Vaesen with different folks or posted in our Discord. But this is a role-play heavy game. Combat is not discouraged. It depends on who the combat is against. It is quite possible to have combat where you wrestle and grapple, try to hold people, try and keep people from, or push people away from you. It is even possible to kill folks. But what I will say is that this is still the 19th century. Even if it is a mythic world, murder was certainly frowned upon, and would probably put the party and your individual characters at risk. I will also say that right up front, at the very beginning of the Vaesen book, it lets you know if you were fighting a Vaesen, things have gone horribly wrong. Normally, if you were fighting one of the creatures, you are either trying to hold it off long enough to perform a ritual, or you are trying to hold it off so that you can escape from its clutches. Trying to take them on head first in combat usually does not end well. I have now been a part of a group that has not recognized that, and part of a group that has, and it can be the difference between a TPK and a successful completion of a mystery. At its core, though, that really is what Vaesen is a mystery game. It's trying to figure out, through the clues that come about, through the interactions that you have through roleplay, of how to solve whatever type of confrontation has arisen because of the presence of the mystical. You are all members of a group called the Society that is kind of a mystical order that has gone through several ups and downs. You have all joined after some of their most recent downturns. I'm going to do this for us here. Actually move this over just a little bit. For the purposes of this game, because we're trying to do this as a one-shot, and because of the time restraints that we have on it, there are certain aspects of the game that we're gonna gloss over just a little bit, but that we can always kind of come back to and build out into backstories and that kind of thing in the future if we want to do more of these one-shots and play more in the world of Vaesen. Part of that glossing over, part of the expectations there is that you have all already been inducted or brought into this group called the Society. You all have the same contact who has helped to kind of initiate you into the order. That person's name is, and I'm going to get all of the names wrong, folks. I have no idea how to actually pronounce Scandinavian names. We're going to roll with it. But that contact's name is Linnea Ethelklint. Linnea was a former member of the Society who chose to lead the organization a dozen or so years ago. She lives in Upsala and is renting a room in a simple apartment in the central part of the city. She spends most of her time at the city's mental asylum and refuses to visit Castle Gillenkreutz, which is where we all find ourselves. This was once the seat of the Society in the city of Upsala, but it is now under kind of massive disrepair. Part of the history of Upsala was that there was a major fire that burned most of the city in the mid-19th century. The castle itself was also part of the city that was damaged, but the castle has never really left the ownership of the Society, and Linnea still had all of the keys and access to it. She believes that it's time to bring the Society back, and has reached out to each of you at different times and in different ways. That'll be one of those relationships that you can add to your character sheet and then decide what that relationship is. How did you meet Linnea? What is it that how did she approach you? In what way did she bring you into the Society? But for the sake of this game, we're going to assume that everybody has gone through that step, and that's why we all find ourselves in Castle Gillenkreutz. Linnea is a bit of a contradiction in terms, or I should say in her memories. She is very knowledgeable of the Society and has shared bits and pieces and bursts with each of you at different times, but some of what she says can be contradictory. If you ask her to describe like her expeditions, the encounters with Vaesen that she went through, she often gets very silent. She will walk away from you, and may even disappear for days on end. Her reasons for helping you to rebuild the Society are unknown to you, but it's clear that she is passionate about the study of Vaesen and believes that there is a need for it. Which brings us to what exactly are Vaesen. So in this mythical version of the North that we live in, there are creatures from Nordic myth, from Nordic fairy tale, that actually exist. but most people can't see them. And with the increase in industrialization, with the growth of cities in the north, less and less people are believing in those fairy tales and in those myths. As cities expand, as farms become larger and larger to provide food for the cities, the natural homes and places for the Vaesen are often being infringed upon. So there are conflicts that begin to arise between these mystical fairy creatures and the people of Upsala and the surrounding regions. Each of you is considered to be is what is called one of Thursday's children, or a Thursday's child. You are somebody who is gifted with the sight. Something has happened to you in your life. It could be an interaction with another Vaesen. It could have been a horrible disease that afflicted you as a child. It could be some type of difficult situation that you have survived or lived through, but something opened up this ability inside of you, where you have the sight, where you can see Vaesen, where you can interact with them, and because of that, you were drawn to a society, which has long been a group of people who have the sight. The original name for the society was the Society for the I'm going to forget the full name now. The Society for the Investigation of Invisibles and Protection of Mankind. Kind of a long name. So we just call it the Society. But they've always been primarily focused on how do we protect humans from the impact of Vaesen, and how do we study them to learn more about them, because so little is known. Each of you has a tie there in some way, shape, or form that's brought you into that. Part of it is your sight, but then part of it also is how you view Vaesen. Are they something to be conquered and removed? Are they something to be studied? Are they something to be learned from? Are they something to be controlled in some way? Each of you has a different reason, a different motivation, and also a different way that you gain the sight. And how you roleplay through can reveal some of that in different ways. So that kind of brings us to where we are here in Castle Gillinkrootz, the old castle that was the initial home of the society here in Upsala. I'll give you a little bit of information about the castle. This is part of the game as well, is that there is some base building that goes into Vaesen. We will not get into that a whole lot tonight, but it is something that if we do continue to have these one-shots at different times, you'll have the ability to build into the castle. So the current headquarters of society is a huge, neglected old castle on a hill by the Firus River. It's surrounded by a black iron fence and has a gate flanked by statues of griffins. The garden and the paved walkway leading to the entrance are overgrown with bushes and trees and various shrubbery. There are plenty of mice, rats, foxes, and birds to be found about the grounds. In the backyard, there's a dilapidated jetty on the shore of the river and a boarded-up boathouse. The garden has several smaller buildings, most likely once used as stables, storage rooms, and servants' quarters, as well as a number of fountains and statues about the grounds. Up on a small hill, there are 7 rotting crosses of wood that you can see from the castle windows. The castle's facade is decorated with monstrous gargoyles. It is a 3-story building with several towers, and it's rumored to have a vast underground cellar. The castle stood vacant for many years. Its old furniture is covered in cobwebs, mice have nested in couches and chairs, rats defend their homes, while bats and crows come and go through the holes in the ceiling. Parts of the building reek of mold, and the leaky roof lets rain in. Some few parts, however, have been restored through the efforts of your butler, Alget Frisk. So you each have a small room to call your own. Additionally, part of Alget's work is that he has helped to restore one of the libraries. It's been repaired enough to cease the leaks in the roof. There's even a few old leather chairs that he's found and brought in for comforts that you can read and lounge about the library. Most of the castle, however, is unexplored. Many of its doors are either locked or nailed shut or sealed by some unknown means. But as you have each lived or stayed in the castle over the various the previous weeks, you have found hints at the previous lives and the people that lived here. You have found old notes, texts, journals, And by reading through them and studying through them, you've learned that there are several other libraries, a laboratory, an infirmary, a chapel, an observatory, halls for magical studies. There are even cells where Vaesen were once held. And all of this is hidden somewhere behind the many secret doors you've identified but have not yet opened. And that's kind of that base building section that we could get into. So as part of the home, as part of the castle, you do have one personnel. The name is as I mentioned, Butler Algot Frisk. And I can pop that for you into the chat here in just a second. Little information about him. Shortly after you took over the castle, you were given the keys by Linnea, and each of you began showing up and introducing yourselves to one another. A man called Algot Frisk arrived, claiming that his ancestors had served at Castle Gillencreuts for hundreds of years, and he insisted on being hired as a steward. He works very hard to keep you all fed, to keep you well dressed, to keep the castle clean, and he's taking every opportunity to point out what needs further repair and where we can apply more staff to make the castle better. Furthermore, it should be noted, the good steward on many occasions has sported a smile that suggests he knows more about the society and Vaesen than he's letting on, but so far none of you have been able to get him to reveal any secret truths. From here on this screen where we're looking at Castle Gillencreuts, you will notice that if you click on the tactical map, you actually have a full map of Upsala with some locations of note. There will also be a token, a large green token for Castle Gillencreuts. You each have access to that. I would ask that we not drag it all over the place. But if you click on that, you have the option to view at the very bottom. And that will give you some of the information you have about your headquarters in terms of what facilities have you uncovered, who your contacts and personnel are. And if you look at the history, it'll give you that rundown that I just gave you on the castle itself. So this is your base inside of Upsala. And as you can see here, we do have some other locations that are offered up as important spots across the city. While we are here in the castle, you will always have access to this map, but I will also give you this. In your handouts, you should now have a map of Upsala. It's the exact same map, but without the token on it for Castle Gillencreuts. It'll just have the map image. But it also gives you a rundown in the text of what all of those other locations are. You don't have to read through it right now. It's simply here as a means of providing a little bit of insight into kind of what's happening around the city that we are all a part of. Let me jump back out of tactical mode here. So, set the stage here for everybody a little bit. What I'd like us to do is some introductions of our characters where we can just kind of describe who we are, what we look like a little bit. So I'll set the stage. It is the middle of the afternoon on a late fall, early winter day. The wind is whistling outside through the trees around Castle Gillencreuts. The interior of the building is fairly cold, but you do have a dining room that Algot has repaired for you. He has prepared a lunch and has invited all of you down. As you come in, there is a large stone fireplace with a crackling fire going, and a large kind of rough wooden table. It's certainly not refined in any way, shape, or form, but there are wooden benches with it as well, where everyone can sit. He has a repast of fish stew, fresh made, those simple kind of farmer's bread with some sweet cream butter. And it's already all laid out, so folks can kind of drift in and sit down as they choose. But we'll use this as an opportunity for each of you to introduce yourselves briefly. Who are you? What do you look like? Maybe a little bit about what brings you to this society, based on your character sheet, if you want to reveal that. And then once we've done the introductions, we will move on from there. But who would like to go first? Who walks in first for lunch?
I will. Butterscotch Horrorderve will walk in looking like a young James Garner, who I actually don't really... we might know him from Maverick. He was the old guy there, but much younger now. Looking in his late teens, dense curly hair, cut short, a mustache. And he walks in and looks at the fire like, God damn it, Frisk. Why do we don't even need that. It's so warm in here. And as people come in, they'll notice that he has significant pit stains on his loose long sleeve shirt, and is slightly sweating from his upper brow. It's like, it's bad for everything. Keeps the spirits away. At least the soup smells good. Will help himself to a large portion. Sit furthest away from the fire, perhaps next to a window, and try to jimmy it open for a second before giving up.
Okay, so since Tom went first, he gets to choose who comes walking in next.
Ooh. I would love for...
And it could be two people. You could say there's a pair walks in, and they'll get to determine how they introduce themselves.
Yes. I think next come in Maj and Dagmar.
All right. I think Maj was first, so you want to go first, Maj?
Thank you very much. Maj Lindberg, hunter extraordinaire. Notice a fine, worn leather jacket, hunting jacket, carrying his rifle over his shoulder. Looks well oiled, taken care of. As he walks in, he's kind of checking the room, checking for angles, sizing everything up, just appreciating this old building and looking forward to some rest and some good food.
So Dagmar is about 5'5" woman. She's got icy blonde hair pulled back very severely, and she's wearing a dark, well-made dress with a lace collar that you will all probably recognize as the outfit of a lady's maid in a fancy house. And she looks kind of, like, it's hard to pinpoint her age. Like, she could be anywhere from sort of early to mid 30s to kind of mid 40s. And she's very intense and severe looking. And she has ramrod straight posture. And she walks into the room and immediately is sort of scanning the room. Maybe for threats, maybe just for dirt. She walks over at one point to the mantle and sort of like wipes a hand along the top of it and looks at her hand and goes, and then sort of nods to Butterscotch and says, well, hello, and goes to get herself a bowl of soup.
Hey, Dags. Hey, Major. Kill anything today?
Not yet. Looking forward to it, though.
I wish you wouldn't call me that.
So as you both settle in, Madge, you get to choose the next person, and then after they are done, we'll let Dagmar pick one and continue on through. Who would you like to be up next, Madge?
Ooh, I think I'd like to see Snorri.
All right. So Snorri walks in. He is a very thin, slight, sort of gaunt man, very pale, in a very well-pressed suit with a small thin little mustache and very delicate eyeglasses. He looks very nervous. He looks sort of like he would rather nobody look at him too much, and sort of looks like if maybe if somebody spoke a little bit too loudly to him, he might just fall over backwards. He has a couple of books under his arm, basically at any given point, and the only part of his sort of appearance that does not appear to be sort of impeccably kept and in perfect order is his ink-stained fingers, and he enters without really acknowledging any of the rest of you. Just sort of keeps his head down, gets a bowl of soup, and sits down and immediately opens one of the books that he has and starts reading.
Hey, Strombone, what you got there?
It's actually an interesting little tome here that I just started to dive into. I don't know that I have very much specific to say about it. I don't think that I have much of an opinion developed on it yet, but at some point perhaps maybe we could discuss it if you have the time to read it yourself.
Will do, definitely.
All right, I want to meet. Do we say Elin or Ellen?
How dare you get my name wrong? It's Elin.
Ellen.
Ellen. Make sure you put the accent on it. Ellen. So Ellen walks in, and she's older. She looks very, very ragged. Skin's kind of like sagging a little bit on the face, because she's like 51 and super old. And she's wearing all brown. She's a true academic. You can't tell the different shades of brown. She just looks like a big bundled up brown cloth ball. She has her glasses, and her glasses aren't quite on her face straight, and she's still, even with her glasses, is kind of squinty and just very judgmental looking. She was sick as a child, and you can tell by the way she walks, it's kind of like she's creaking like a old rocking chair on an old porch. She's a true academic. She has a book tucked under her shoulder or under her elbow all the time. She's always working very hard to make sure that, she's not overly criticized and that she is always right. She thinks very logically. So that is why she makes sure that people pronounce her name correctly. Elin! So she scooches over and she grabs a biscuit and sits at the table and just munches it slowly, with crumbs getting all caught up in her wrinkly little chin and on her brown cloth ball of academic brown.
Dagmar is going to say, is it Dr. or Professor Gregorious? Remind me. You are making crumbs on the table again.
Not my job.
Sorry, making crumbs is not your job? I would tend to agree. Perhaps you could refrain.
I don't have to clean up. I just eat the biscuit. That's what we're here for. We're here to eat the biscuits.
We are here to combat supernatural threats, Doctor.
Yes, not biscuit crumbs.
You never know what could cause a problem in a place like this.
Yeah, I see somebody starting a problem already.
As they are conversing back and forth, Snorri, who do you see walking in?
Let's see. Well, we got. How about Gothi?
Yes, you're here. Wonderful. The stew smells excellent. Well done, Frisk. Well done. How is everyone today?
Snorri doesn't answer.
You all
As well as could be
see,
expected, thank you.
Of course, Dagmar, you're always doing well. And you see this very tall, like 6'4" man. I mean, just he fills the doorways, he fills the room. Walk in. He's got thick blonde hair, a thick blonde beard. You can see like around the temples. He's starting to get a little bit of silver, but it blends in pretty well since he's blonde. Bright, sparkling, bright blue eyes. He just has this like magnetic charisma when he walks in the room. Wearing like a priest's habit, all in black. Priest vestments? Vestments is the word I wanted. Samuel, you're behind me, yes?
Last but not least, Samuel walks in. He's probably got a sharp gaze, looking around. Very messy, dark hair. He has a coat that's very worn. Probably tell he's faced a lot of challenges, but he does look like an investigator. Walks with a pipe. Yeah. He's probably not going to say anything, just going to sit down. And not eat.
Gothi Bodil will try to put some of his own stew in front of Samuel and like clap him on the back real hard.
No thanks. No thanks.
You must keep up your strength, sir. We'll find something to your liking.
Appreciate that.
So as you all sit around the table, beginning to engage in conversation, keeping in mind that you can all choose how you've known each other. So whether you all have met recently, whether you knew each other through Linnea as she brought you into society, or whether you maybe knew each other even beforehand, I will leave it up to you. You can either have discussions back and forth on our breaks, or whisper each other if you want to, or just role play with it and see who goes with it. All of that is perfectly fine. But the idea here is that some of you are still relatively strangers, but some of you have known each other for a while. But you're all part of that same organization. You all have the same goals of revising and rebirthing the society to study and learn more about Vaesen. So as you sit talking back and forth, through the door from the kitchen comes your steward, your butler, Algot. And he walks in and he has a large folded letter on some older looking paper. You can see just from a quick view from across the room even that it has a large wax seal on it. And he announces, a message boy just dropped this off. It is addressed to members of the society. And the boy said that he was paid extra to deliver it immediately. And he holds it forth.
I will obviously
Frisky,
snatch it up. What does it say?
Okay, so as Samuel gets up and snatches the letter from Algot's hand, cracking open the red seal, you will all now see that you have a handout called A Strange Invitation.
The Dance of Dreams?
So as you open it up...
Well, Samuel, what does it say? Sorry.
You want to read it?
No, you go right ahead. You opened it.
I did. A shadow play of horror, murder, and revenge. Let yourself be enraptured and terrified by shadow theater, with clockwork as amazing as that of the master's constructions on the continent. Watch as evil smiles, good people go to their doom, and spirits come to life. Follow Oscar Hort's encounter with the Black One, his struggle, and finally the betrayal which claimed his life. Hear the tunes of the enchanted flute that sends souls dancing to hell. The show will premiere shortly at the Witch Cat Inn, not for the faint of heart. And it says at the bottom, meet me tonight at the Witch Cat Inn, Does that say Olaus?
Olaus.
Clout? What? Who is it?
Olaus.
Olaus.
Okay, thank you.
So what would you like to do with that?
Do we know this Olaus?
If anyone thinks that they may have, and I'm going to pause here real quick, because there's 7 of you. When I say anyone, I mean up to 2 or 3 people maximum that rolls. Otherwise, you're gonna pass every skill check I put in front of you. So anyone who thinks that they may have heard the name Olaus, if you would like to do a learning roll, you can certainly do so. We're looking for a single success. So you can discuss amongst yourselves, like if you want to ask, has anyone heard of this person, or are you familiar with them? But we'll let two different folks can roll to see if they know who Olaus is. And it's going to be a learning.
And can you say again what?
This will be a
learning
test.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone know who this is?
I would like to.
I'm
try
sure
it.
I've met him before, but I have no memory for names.
Elin?
Yes, I think I know Olaus.
Well, if we would like our academic to roll for us first, so bottom left-hand corner where you've got your abilities and skills, Niki, if you click on learning, in the middle of your screen, kind of toward the bottom, it'll give you the option to either use or test, I think it might be. And that will do the roll for you. Yeah, bottom left, if you scroll down, you should see learning, and then it'll give you the option to click on test. Okay. So again, D6 system. So she clearly has high logic and high learning to get that many dice, but she got a success. So she is good. So you do know who Olaus is. You have heard his name before. He has, let's see how I want to do this here. You have heard of, you notice from the wax seal, as Samuel was kind of cracking it open, that it was a K in fine calligraphy, and you recognize that as the House of Clint. Olaus being one of the only surviving members of that family, you know that he has a small house in the middle of the city. He's been making a bit of a name for himself as a private investigator.
That tells me I would probably know him too.
You could certainly roll learning if you want. And we can see if you know anything about him. Oh, 2 successes for Samuel. Excellent. So not only do you know that he has been making a name for himself as a private investigator, but he very specifically works on cases of the occult. You know from your own kind of workings as a private detective in the city, there are not many of you, so you are familiar with the different names. Olaus has got a fairly good reputation, though there are many who deride him because he only works on the occult. So there's many people that believe that what he investigates is just nonsense. You have often wondered, because you got 2 successes, I will say this, you have often wondered if he might not also be a Thursday's Child.
Cool.
Any other questions about the missive, the strange invitation?
This is great. I was already planning on going, but I wanted to ask, is anyone, the Oscar Hjort story in the black one, that's a true story, right? I don't know, have you ever read about that, Stromboni?
Yes, I believe that the story of Oscar Hjort sounds familiar. Is there something that I would roll to
This would also be a learning check.
determine that? Great.
Or how about you, Professor Gregorious?
Of course, you'd ask the expert that knows everything.
Look,
Okay.
you're the best teacher I ever had way back when.
I don't know if it's too many people, but I'm also curious if the black one is like a religious term.
Okay. So let's start here for 1 second. Let me just grab this here real quick. Okay. So, let me just go here real quick. 2 conditions. Okay, so Snorri rolled and did not get any successes. So at this point, he has the option on whether he wants to accept that roll for what it is and not gain a clue or insight, or he can choose to push it. Now, when you push, there are some possible negative downsides. As I mentioned before, we have both physical and mental conditions. As you push, let me just do this here. No problem, Dave. Just trying to get back to pushed rolls here real quick. So having failed test, you can choose to muster your strength or mental abilities and give it another try. It can only be done once per action, and it's called pushing the roll. When you push a roll, regardless of whether you succeed or fail on it, you will suffer a condition. Because learning is a logic or a mental skill, you could push this to gain the information, but you would gain 1 mental condition in doing so, which means that anything that is done with logic or empathy would have a reduction in the total number of dice that you can roll going forward. So part of the mental and physical side of Vaesen is determining what information is super important and what roles are super important to you. So it is your choice on whether you would like to push that roll. Just know that if you do so, Connor, you would take 1 mental condition. You have up to 4. At 4, you would become broken. And in terms of healing things, there are ways to remove conditions in the game, but kind of like in D&D, to really remove things does take like a full day, that kind of stuff. But there are some other things in the game where you can remove them. Can it be Tourette's?
I think that I will not push this at this point. I think just trying to recall a name from a story doesn't seem like worth pushing. That's
perfectly okay. The one last thing that I will say is that once you actually are broken, there is a list of like critical injuries, both physical and mental, where it's a randomized roll to see what happens, and those rolls are a mixture of defects and insights. So it is possible to become broken and get a defect like your knee is permanently injured and your character will walk with a limp going forward. At the other side, it is possible, though there are fewer options for them in those lists, to get an insight where your character gains like additional abilities as a person with the sight. So even though you may become broken and have to roll on one of those tables, there is always the possibility of gaining something because you've given up so much. So I don't want to make it seem as if it is only a negative.
Right.
But again, it's always up to you guys to balance that upon where we are currently in the mystery to where you're trying to get to. So passing here might be a great idea since we're right at the very beginning.
Yeah, seems like it's not exactly worth it.
Yep. Did we have anybody else that wanted to roll and see if they were familiar with the name Oscar Hjort?
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, so is it a straight logic roll,
so
or is it?
So under skills, you'll have one for learning. You scroll down.
Yeah.
You click on click on learning, and then test.
Oh dear. Okay, I have 0 learning, so this should be interesting. Okay, learning.
I've got
Go.
you. I've got you.
Did it work?
Nope, didn't. I don't see a roll.
Okay, so I rolled one die because I.
So if you click on learning in the center of your screen below your portrait, it should change and give you a button that says test. If you click on that, it should roll for us.
Okay, hang on. Okay, learning. Oops. I don't see anything that says test.
Just under your character.
It's
portrait.
right above the big giant X, so it's like at the
Oh, there we go.
the X.
Okay, there we go. All right.
And just so you know, on any of those skills or attributes on the left-hand side, you can right-click on it, and it'll give you a pop-up menu as well that'll give you test view there, if that's easier for you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
So
Looks
we
like a
had,
success.
So Dagmar rolled and had a success. Okay, so Dagmar, in your time living here over the last few days in Castle Gillencroots, finding some of the different journals and pieces, especially maybe taking a little bit of interest once Frisk was able to get the library, one of the libraries reopened, you found a list of society members that mentioned a man named Oscar Hjort who lived in the late 18th century. He worked as a writer, and he spent some time in Paris studying under Francois Dominique Séraphin.
Okay. I will convey this to the rest of the group. I'll say, yeah. Okay, so Francois Dominique Séraphin. Okay.
So you know that there was mention of him as so he was Oscar Hjort was a former member of the society. He was one of you in the late 18th century. While that is happening, M, you were asking if there was anything about the black one. I'm not even going to make you roll on this because you're our priest. That is just it's a nickname or a reference to the devil. Yep.
Could we ask the butler about Oscar Hjort?
Certainly could. You certainly could. Let's say we call for Algot. He comes walking in, kind of stiff and prim, and says, "Yes. What is it you have need of? Is the food not to your liking?"
No, it's wonderful, thank you. We were wondering if the name Oscar Hjort, a former society member from some decades ago, might ring any bells to you.
He pauses for a moment and says, I don't have any memory of the name. You may want to search through the library. There are many tomes of reference of important figures in Swedish history and politics, even lists of members of the society and people that the society may have worked with in the past, but I don't personally have any memory of that name.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What else would you guys like to know based on what you see in that handout?
Is it time to go?
What about the Witch Cat Inn? Do we know? Is this any sort of what kind of reputation does the establishment have?
If you feel like your character is someone who may be well traveled and gets out of the city limits of Upsala, go ahead and do a learning roll for me. Okay, so Maj has got a success. Samuel does not. Okay. So Maj, being a hunter, and constantly being out in the wilds, making your way back and forth between the small villages around Upsala, you're never really entirely comfortable in the city, especially as it becomes more industrialized. But you are familiar with the Witch Cat Inn. It's at a crossroads north of Sigtuna, which is south of Upsala. You have been there in the past, and you know that it was a comfortable, quiet inn with good food, a warm hearth, good beds, and even for just a few coins, you could easily get an animal stabled and a warm meal in your stomach as you pass by. It is at a crossroads, again, leading to Sigtuna, or a ferry that crosses the river and the lake Malar in the west. So you are familiar with this location. It is a few hours south of Upsala, so to get there you will have to travel to be able to visit the inn this evening.
I will say the inn is respectable if you like sleeping indoors.
I will, so this is one of those roles where I'll let more folks roll if they would like to. If anybody else wants to know if they know anything about the Witch Cat Inn, I know Samuel rolled as well. This is one of those things that if you have traveled at all or been outside of the city, you may have heard things.
Okay. I want to try to.
Okay, so we've got one more success here. So Gothi. We're going to say that you were one of the first people that Linnea met and invited into Castle Gillencrutz, so you have been here. She found comfort in you as a priest, and you know that she has some eccentricities and does not like coming into the castle, but that she has often found comfort in your counsel. She made reference of some journals that she had hidden in her old room, which you were able to locate when you first came into the castle. You have seen reference to the Witch Cat Inn previously. So there was it's called the Great Ulu Fire. I'm going to mispronounce this. Great Ulu Fire at the end of the 18th century, where much of Upsala was burned. The Witch Cat Inn was used as a temporary gathering place for the society. The innkeeper and owner at the time, Pyri Harjula, was also a Thursday's Child and a member of the society. The inn itself has been handed down through his family, so there may still be a group of Harjulas running the inn today.
Of course, the Witch Cat Inn, everyone knows it. And we'll explain the provenance.
Have any of you heard of this master on the continent?
Anybody would like to roll a learning check on that? Someone who it needs to be people that engage with the arts, who may have an idea of what this Dance of Dreams is when it talks about this.
I'll go for that.
The art of killing.
Not the art of war. Okay, so Snorri, as Dagmar asks the question, does anybody have any information or know what this means? And also, as she was mentioning that name, Francois Dominique Seraphin, as she was asking questions about Oscar Hjort, you recognize the name. This is something that you've come across in your previous reading, and as you're a lover of fine arts, you are aware that he is known as a very famous artist who put on shadow plays for the court at Versailles. So part of the combination of those clues is that you now know that Oscar Hjort worked with this, or worked for Francois Dominique Seraphin in the art of shadow plays.
And Francois is the master.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Who knows what shadow plays are?
Are we talking about like shadow puppet type? I mean, or is this have a different definition here?
You can certainly do a learning roll. So I
feel like if I know about Francois Dominique Seraphin, I would probably know about shadow plays, but I guess I'll.
Oh.
Nah, I guess I don't.
So you've heard the term before, but you're not familiar with it as an artistic expression. Oh, but Elin does. Elin actually knows a lot about shadow plays. She knows everything there is to know about shadow plays. So shadow theater originated in India and China. It was practiced for several centuries before we even knew of Christ. It's where cutout paper figures are held up to a source of light to create shadows on a cloth screen. Skilled puppeteers can manipulate the puppets and the lights. The figures appear to be alive. The art form really came to Italy and its height of popularity in the 18th century, and then continued to spread across Europe. Artists in England and France have experimented with clockworks to create automated shadow theaters. So this is kind of like, moving pictures before moving pictures. It's these clockwork automatons used to create shadow theater with light and sound and storytelling. Any other questions about the strange invitation, the handout? Otherwise, we are going to find ourselves transitioning over into the next phase of our mystery.
Frisky, you appreciate a good show, right? You gonna come to the play with us tonight?
I think my time would be better served here, continuing to try to rehabilitate the confines of the castle. But I'm sure you'll each be able to regale me with stories afterwards.
Dagmar is going to say, "Thank you," in a way that somehow manages to combine sincere gratitude and slight judgmentalness for the state that the castle is currently in.
You can see that kind of that raises the hairs on the back of Frisk's neck a little bit, and he looks back, and with that same, to the T, the same level of kind of sarcasm, he says, "You are quite welcome." And he exits. So at this point, I'm not going to make any rolls for this. We will know that the travel from Upsala to the area south where the Witch Cat Inn is or is located, it's going to take you probably about a 2-hour ride, 2 to 3 hours by carriage. You can certainly entreat your steward to hire a carriage that can carry all of you south. We will not worry about resource rolls for that. It's certainly something that we can pay for out of the castle funds. So at this point, you have about an hour or 2 hours each to prepare yourselves before making the journey. So in this preparatory phase in a Vaesen mystery, there's a couple things that you can do. This is where we're going to get to expend some of our resources and do a brief shopping montage. But it's also where you can seek to gain advantage for your character that you can use once in the session. So advantage is the ability to add a +2 dice to any single roll, but you can only use it once. To gain that advantage, it has to be something that is specific to your character. So for example, when I was playing the officer in a game, I chose to use the 2 hours to practice with my rapier. And the idea there was that I would get a +2 advantage if I went into combat. So it's not just kind of an advantage that I can apply to any skill or attribute. You want to try and think about what would your character do to prepare before leaving that might give you additional insights where you would have an advantage in one of the 4 attributes. And it literally can be anything. There's no right or wrong here. It's more of a role play thing. Basically, I'm going to give you a +2. What you're telling me is what attribute would you want it applied to, and what did you do to prepare to get there?
Well, I think Snorri would, having realized that there were a number of pieces of information that he was unable to recall, would immediately go to the library and try to find everything that he could about either the area around the Witch Cat Inn, Oscar Hjort, Francois Dominique Seraphine, all of the, basically just try to give that +2 learning, if that is possible. Just kind of a quick brush up on pieces of information that might come up.
So Snorri immediately, as the group begins to disperse away from lunch, Snorri immediately makes his way back to the reopened library. He very quickly is able to kind of peruse through the shelves, find some readings on shadow theater, find some readings on 18th century society members, maybe a little bit of information about that area of Sweden that we're going to be traveling to kind of brush himself up and be better prepared for for a specific learning challenge that he's going to want to look at. Absolutely, you're going to get a +2 at one point if you would like to use that.
So it's one use.
One use of it. Yep.
And
here's the fun thing. I will let you add those 2 dice at any point in time. You don't have to specify it before the roll. You can roll and say, hey, I didn't do so great. I want to try and add those 2 and can certainly do so. And additionally, those 2 extra 6-sided dice also apply to a push. So for example, if you rolled 5 dice on a logic test plus another 2 for a total of 7 because of your advantage, and you did not get a pass there, you didn't get a success, I would let you re-roll all 7 on a push. So who else would like an advantage?
I think Dagmar is going to want to go practice some target shooting with her revolver so that she can have a combat advantage.
Okay. So let's tighten that up just a little bit. So that the same way that specifically Snorri is going to be looking at using it for a learning roll, with a revolver, if I am correct, let me just check here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So the revolver, I think, can be used. I think the range on the revolver is 0 to 1, which means that you can use it in either a close or a medium zone. So let's tie that to ranged combat specifically.
Okay.
So, and the reason I say that is that you can also like pummel somebody with the handle of the gun, which would make it more of a melee. Mm-hmm. But I'm guessing if you're practicing shooting it, what you're really talking about is ranged combat.
Sounds good.
Okay. So you will have a +2. So Dagmar goes outside, kind of back around to that old decrepit boatyard. You set up a few targets along the iron fence line and begin practicing with your revolver, firing off a few rounds, making sure that you can hit from different distances.
Maj would like to join in the target practice.
Can absolutely do so. So Dagmar, as you are peppering your targets, Maj comes walking out. I believe Maj has a rifle. If I am correct, let me do that. Yeah, it doesn't have descriptions. Let me get up here real quick in the equipment. So I believe the rifle actually requires range. I don't think it actually lets you use it as a melee. Let me just check here, though. I think it has a range of 1 to 3.
I do have an action for a rifle butt.
Yeah. Where's my resources? Here we
It's
are.
a sweet rifle butt.
Yes, so the range on the rifle is 1 to 3, which means that all combat in Vaesen is zoned. When you are in close combat with somebody where you could melee hit them, that is considered the zone 0. Then you go out to the next, a distance away from that would be zone 1, 2 distance zone 2, etc. And if we get into a combat like that, I would highlight on the map what those zones would be. It's not based on like 25 feet of movement, 30 feet of movement. It's not like that. So with the rifle, from distance, you can't shoot from within the same zone. So I would say this would also be a range combat. If you were practicing shooting from great distance, it would be a +2 to that. Which would not apply to, say, the melee butt damage if you were to get into that kind of situation. It would be distance. Yep. Excellent.
Of course.
All right, so you'll have a +2 to that if we get into some shooting. So that's Snorri, Maj, and Dagmar. Anyone else that would like to have an advantage for the round?
Gothi would like to go back to his room and do a lot of primping and preening, getting his hair in just like the perfect position, combing the beard, in order to make himself like even more attractive, to get an advantage on a manipulation roll.
Okay. Excellent. So that'll be a +2 on manipulation.
Okie dokie.
I'm here for the hot priest content.
Excellent. So that leaves us with Elin, Samuel, and Butterscotch.
Elin would like to take a 2-hour nap to help her physique because she is so frail, just in case there's any combat or something. Somebody throws something at her, she's got to try and catch it.
So, okay. So under physique, that would be... Where did she just go here?
Agility. We'll go with agility.
Okay. So a +2. So, yeah. Agility will be... allow you to evade attacks or escape. So that is a great one for what you're talking about here. There are some pluses there as well. You will notice, like, if you look at some of the skills that you have, depending upon the number of successes, you can do additional things like agility. If she rolled 2 successes, not only do you evade their attack or reduce the amount of damage they were doing, I should say, but you can also change places with them in the initiative order. So there's little things like that on some of the skills. So agility is a great one to choose. So we'll give Elin a +2 on agility checks if we get to that, if we have something that requires it.
Samuel's going to focus on logic, I think, and do some studying of previous case files. And then I think he would also try to find any reference materials in the library, maybe some, like occult symbols, lore, notes, things like that.
Where is Samuel going to want to apply that? Is it going to be if he is trying to do another learning check? Is it investigation? So logic has 3 skills: investigation, learning, and vigilance. Investigation is going to be like your ability to discern things. Learning is kind of the stuff that we were just doing. In other words, like reading from books, things that you've known, conversations you've had. Whereas vigilance is more about trying to pick out... I didn't mean to do that. Vigilance is more about trying to notice someone sneaking up on you. You can also use it to like follow tracks, creatures, things like that. So my guess is that this is either going to be like a learning or an investigation.
Yeah, I will probably go with investigation. Really bump that up.
All right. So if at any point in time you need to investigate something and want to really load up your dice, you can add +2 to that as an advantage. And investigation is like for things like searching rooms, understanding what happens at crime scenes, examining dead bodies or evidence, finding something that's obscured or hidden. So those are, and that's already something that Samuel is very good at. So that might give you multiple successes, which could give you additional information. Excellent. So last but not least, Butterscotch Horrorderve.
Butterscotch, as always, after lunch, goes on a walk outside to cool down. It's really warm in there. And he often makes his way up to the... Jamie, you described an area with some crosses, some old crosses, maybe on a hill.
There is a hill inside the castle grounds, but a little bit outside of it where there are 7 rotting wooden crosses.
Hold on one second. Okay. Mic test?
Yep. We got you.
All right. Yeah, makes his way up there to gab with the spirits. Sometimes there might be a couple of out. Just catch them up on the gossip and might ask around about the old member of the order, Olaf's. But in terms of mechanics, I think it's kind of a friendly banter that would like to take inspiration.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, so inspiration can be used in a couple different ways. It's that ability to address a crowd, encourage and guide your friends. It also can be used to do things like sustaining through mental injuries or critical injuries, to heal mental conditions over time. So there's definitely some benefits into boosting up that empathy skill. Awesome. Okay. So at this point, we have gotten through introducing everyone, introducing the setting. Everyone has their advantage. Our next step is going to be to do some purchases, but I think what we'll do is just take a quick, let's do 12 minutes. Let's be back at the top of the hour. We'll do our first break here since we're just about halfway through our time. We get back, we'll do a very quick shopping montage, and then we'll travel and get down to the Witch Cat Inn and see what we can learn. Sound good?
Cool. Sounds
See
good.
everybody back at the top of the hour.
See you soon.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the quick break. Let's do a quick shopping montage before we take off to see if there's any additional equipment or resources that you might want to take with you. So I linked a quick resource and equipment how to play article in here for you. Don't read through all of it. There's a whole bunch of information in there, but there's a couple of tables that I wanted to provide so that because they're going to help us. So everybody starts off with a certain amount of resources, and it's based on your character archetype. And I believe I've added in an action for each of you. So if on your character, or I should say on your actions and all that in the bottom left-hand corner, if you click on actions, you should see that you have dice pools for like resource roll, and then it will list what level of resource you started off at. Is there anybody that doesn't see that in the actions in the bottom left? Okay, awesome. So the way that it works is that, and this is kind of dependent on whether or not you have started off at a certain level of value based on your resources on your archetype. We'll choose how many dice you roll to see if you add to our resource pool. And then also for certain classes, it adds a certain amount of capital, which is kind of like an additional resource that you have. So for example, I'm pretty sure that Dagmar started off at resource 4, which means that she is financially stable. She also starts off with 2 capital. Capital can be added in at any point in time as like an additional resource without having to roll the dice. So what I want like everybody to do right now is on that action tab, you have resources and you have bartering. We're going to roll resources. There's two options to buy equipment, and that's before the adventure and then during it. Resources is before, bartering would be during. So if everybody can right click on it and choose test, or click on it and choose the test button in the middle, we're going to see how many successes we get here for our resources. Yeah.
My slide rule rocks, man. It's the best analog computer ever.
Let me just check something here. I think that can't be. I don't think that's right, Nikki. Hang on one second here. I don't think the academic is that rich.
Just gaming the system.
It wouldn't be her fault. Some of the archetypes came with, yeah. So you actually have 4, so it would have been 1 less than that, but it's perfectly all right. You're still good like that. We'll say your one success was not the one that came past. So you will see some of you have gotten messages like you can add to the number of successes above. So here's how things can work out. You can either pool your resources and choose to help each other buy additional pieces of things, or you can choose to hold on to those resources and possibly use them later in the adventure. It's up to you. But the reason that I linked that resources and equipment article, if you scroll back up to that, is if you actually scroll down further in that article, there is a section on equipment, armor, and services that lists out all of the equipment, armor, weapons, services and establishments, everything that you can basically purchase using those resources. And as you look at them, you'll see that it has an item, a bonus, and then an availability and an effect. The availability is the resource cost. So for example, in that equipment list, the very first item is a crowbar. If you guys wanted to bring a crowbar thinking that you would have need of it, it would cost 2 resources to purchase it, and then we would add that to whomever is going to be carrying that piece of equipment through the mystery. Now, if you look at your equipments tab in that bottom left-hand corner next to actions, you'll see that you already have some equipment that came with your starting character based on your archetype. So, for example, if I look at Butterscotch, as an occultist, he comes with a crystal ball, a tinderbox, a dagger. So what we can do here is, like, if you wanted to purchase additional equipment as a group, you can certainly do so. If you want to purchase things individually, you can do so. I'm going to leave that up to be a group discussion on whether you want to pool your resources or not, and that includes the additional capital that some of you may have. So let's see here. If we look at it, we got Dagmar had a success. Maj had a success. Gothi had a success. Elin had a success. So that would be 4 resources. And then I believe that Gothi, Samuel, Maj, and Dagmar each have some additional capital, which counts as a resource if you wanted to spend it. So it's kind of...
Is it use it or lose it, or do we, like, accumulate it?
So it's accumulated through the session. So you could use it later if there was an additional purchase, an option to purchase more things or barter for things later on. The difference is that when you barter, it includes some of your manipulation roll, because the person you're bartering with is going to try and get the best deal possible. Whereas if you buy before the adventure, it's just the current market cost.
Okay.
So I will meta game with you guys just a little bit based on what you may have already as equipment. Things like medicine, things that can help to heal conditions, that kind of stuff is always a good thing to try and purchase and bring, just in case anybody gets injured. But I'll leave it up to you guys on whether you want to just kind of head out with what you have or whether you want to purchase anything else. It's going to be a group discussion, so I'm going to sit back. You have individually rolled. If you want to keep those resources individually or share them as a group, that is a decision for each of you to make.
Sorry, what again is the bonus?
So that
in the equipment.
It's an excellent question, Connor. So that comes into play during the bartering phase. So it's not part of the initial purchase.
Okay.
That's the bonus that gets applied when it's a contested roll during the bartering.
Gotcha. So for this purpose right now, we just look at that availability column.
Correct.
That just tells us
Correct.
the cost.
And then the effect will tell you what it would do for you. So for example, with the crowbar, would cost you 2 resources, but it helps you to break a lock open using force rolls. So if you had a successful force, you could snap a lock off of a door or a chest or something. Yep.
How much capital did we add total?
That depends on if folks want to add in their capital.
Where do we do that?
So it depends on what your level was. So depending on how many dice you just rolled, if you are a resource value 3, you had 1 capital. If you were a resource value 4, you had 2. And I don't think we had anybody at a full 5 after I adjusted Niki's. And that capital just means that you're living well enough above the poverty line that you have some saved resources that you can spend. And the nice thing about capital is it's not dice that you roll, it's just a resource that you have to spend.
So when it says add 1 to the number of successes above.
So if I look at Samuel's roll, you had 0 successes, but you have 1 capital. So technically you have a resource that you could spend.
Okay.
Or add to the group. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Whereas, for example, Maj rolled and was successful and has 1, so he technically has 2 resources that he could spend or add to the group.
So does that mean that Snorri has no resources at the moment? Because in my equipment it says 2 resources, but that is...
So that's it's the dice that you roll.
I see. Okay.
Yep. Not the actual... So capital is the actual final version of the resource, whereas the resource itself is how many dice you would roll. So right now you had 2 dice that you could roll. Unfortunately, you didn't have any successes on it, and this is one of those rolls that we can't push. It's just it kind of is what it is. Yep. So let's start the discussion. Do folks want to spend it individually, or do you want to pool it as a group to buy items, or both? I mean, you've got there's with the capital, you've got enough to buy probably more than 1 or 2 items if you wanted to.
Well, I'm looking at this list here. Does anyone here have high medicine? Oh, good. Okay.
Nobody
we have
the
Well, we could get, I guess, some bandages or medical equipment, which is not that resource heavy.
Yeah, I don't have high medicine.
Has 5 precision plus 1 in training, so a 6 total.
For medicine?
Yeah, I've got...
That's good.
I've got...
That's very good.
2 in the medicine skill and 3 in precision, so 5 from that. Because Snorri was a sickly child, and so he's seen a lot of doctors.
Okay.
Also,
so that could
like the... Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I want to toss in just one quick thing for you as you do the discussion around medicine or a medicine pack. So the way that healing works inside of the game is that if someone has a critical injury, in other words, they have become broken, they've rolled on the table, and you want to stabilize them, you can use medicine or inspiration, if it's physical or mental, to treat that critical injury and get that player back on their feet. Otherwise, actually healing conditions requires a full day. So the medicine can be useful in terms of critical injuries in a session, but in terms of actual healing of everything, it would require a full day of rest along with it.
Jamie, how does that work with my special thing? Is it just that you can heal 3 instead of 2 over the course of the day?
Here.
I don't know how long confession averages.
So it depends on what kind of condition. So if it's physical or mental, but it would be over the day. Yep.
Over the day. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yep.
I would also be in favor, because I feel like rope is always useful. Sorry, I would love to add that to our shopping list.
I've been, for no reason whatsoever, I've been rereading Lord of the Rings because I think I only read it once, as a teenager. And so rope definitely is first and foremost, because Sam basically spends 90% of the Fellowship of the Ring bemoaning the fact that he did not bring any rope.
You just always have it when you're adventuring.
Yes.
The other thing I thought of is that we could maybe use a pair of either opera glasses or binoculars if we're going to be watching a performance, and want to see things that happen on the stage?
I have binoculars.
Does anyone already have?
Yes.
Oh, you have binoculars. Oh, great. Okay, so we probably don't have to buy any. Great.
Does somebody have a magnifying glass?
I do not, but would love one.
I think I would like a magnifying glass.
So
That's a good
magnifying
idea.
glass and rope.
Investigation.
And maybe
Yeah.
a medicine
Magnifying
pack.
glass.
I have a
and-
camera that says it used to gain knowledge about a place with learning or investigation. But mechanically, how does that work? Because, like, I assume this is not a digital camera we're talking about. Like, is it like I can take photos of something and then, like, 5 days later have them developed and see what we found?
I think we could role play it a little bit. So if it was a game that had multiple days, we could certainly do that. Or maybe you could say you have the ability to process your film in a closet, that kind of thing.
Right.
But you could also say that similar to how you might use a magnifying glass or binoculars, maybe if the camera itself has some level of magnification, it might help you to find clues that way. So I would leave that open and interpretive to role play. And I'm not being a punitive DM. If we know it's a single night session, I would probably find a way for us to use it.
Makes sense.
Okay, so when it comes to medicine, we have two choices. One of which, or it looks like, one of which is called simple bandages, that is 1 resource, and the other is medical equipment, which is 2 resources. Which one would we prefer to buy?
I would say-
Mechanically, does that change? Like, if you have medical equipment versus simple bandages, does that mean you can heal more severe injuries or something? Or
So it's the bonus that it's going to apply. So they're both required if you're going to do like a medicine roll on somebody to try to heal them. So medical equipment would give you a +2. Simple bandage would give you a +1.
+1. Okay. That's what
So
that
if you
is.
have
Cool.
somebody who already has a really high medicine skill, you could probably get away with using simple bandages.
Right.
I think the other thing, if we're buying, Dagmar would love a knife/dagger. I feel like that, along with rope, that's like, it's good for someone to have a knife. Does anyone who's not Dagmar have a knife?
Madge has a knife.
Okay, alright. I think I might like one.
Hunting equipment and a hunting trap.
Oh, good. Okay. Alright, so how many
Snorri
total
would
resources?
prefer not to carry weapons of any kind.
So we rolled...
You rolled 4, and I think you had up to 6
We rolled 4.
capital. So you have 10 resources if you want to expend everything you've got.
Okay. Alright, so in order of priority then, I'm just gonna open that back up again because I accidentally clicked out of it. Okay. We really need the rope. The rope costs us 1. Did we decide between bandages or medical equipment?
I would argue medical equipment.
Yeah, okay. So that's 2.
So 3.
Yeah, so 3 total. Then what was the magnifying glass the other thing we really wanted?
Yep.
Okay, and how much was
Magnifying
that?
glass,
And then chemical equipment.
chemical equipment too.
I would also vote for a lantern potentially because we don't have dark vision.
I have a hurricane lamp.
You have a
already.
lantern, great. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so chemical equipment
It's 2.
is 2. All right, so that's 5. And then what was the other one?
Mag glass. I
Which is
think,
another-
right?
Which is another
Magnifying
2. So that would
glass.
that would be up to 7 of your 10 resources if you bought all of those things.
That's not bad.
Okay,
Do
that's
it
not bad
up.
at all. Let's do
Everyone
it.
agreement?
So then the next question is, who is going to carry the different items? Because what we'll want to do is have you go into your character sheet, and I'll walk you through adding them.
Okay, I'm going to take the chemical equipment.
Okay. So
I can carry the rope. I'm strong.
So Gothi's
I'll
got
carry the
rope.
magnifying glass.
Samuel's got magnifying. Len's got chemical equipment. Who wants to carry the medical equipment?
I think Snorri should have it.
Yeah, I can carry the medical equipment.
Okay. So to add things to your character sheet, if you open up the sheet itself, and then top left hand, click on edit.
So this is not under equipment where it says add
You
item.
can do it there as well.
Oh, you can do it. Okay. All right.
Either or. Yep. Actually, you know what, Connor? Your way is even easier. If you just click on equipment, bottom left-hand corner, at the bottom it'll say add item. And it's going to open up and give you a search or a filter at the top. You should be able to type in the option that you just bought and hit enter. And it will show you the basic item that you can add with an add button.
It's certainly not.
It worked
Oh, there
for
it
me.
is. Okay, there we go. Got it.
Okay. And once you have it and you see it in your equipment, what you will notice is that to the far right of it, there's a little white dot that may not be filled in, which means that it's not equipped. You want to fill that dot so it looks like your other equipment, and then that should add in an action for you back on your action tab where you could actually use those things, which will affect that roll. So for example, if Gothi was to try to use that rope, to use force to climb something, you could just go in and click on rope and test, and it's going to let you roll it. Yep, you've got it. It's the same way that Samuel just used the magnifying glass. And as you can see, it does align with your attributes and your skills. So, for example, when Samuel uses a magnifying glass, that is a very high roll. Okay, so we have all 4 pieces of equipment added.
I filled the dot, and it's filled on my
How does that?
sheet. But when I
How
go
does
back,
that work?
it doesn't show up. Oh, now it did. Yeah.
It may just take a moment to, it may take a moment to update from the server side. Let me look at your sheet here real quick, Dagmar. If I go to equipment.
I think I'm good, actually. I'm
Yep.
testing.
Yep.
Got the lamp. Oh, that was a bad roll, so I'm glad I wasted it.
Okay. So you still have 3 resources left. We can keep those pooled as a group. You can use them later if you choose to. Otherwise, we are going to move on from our shopping montage.
Sounds good.
Okay. Excellent. So you have taken some few hours to ready yourself, gaining advantage, learning as much as you can, readying yourself to travel to the Witch Cat Inn. You have gone about town, maybe even sending Frisk out, looking to find some additional items to ensure that you are ready to face whatever might come to you. Now it's time for us to travel on. So as we leave Upsala, a storm is beginning to set in. The sun is setting as you all crowd into a very tightly packed coach heading south. Outside, a terrible early winter storm can be heard building up in the distance. As you drive in the first hour, freezing rain and hail begin to patter against the carriage, leaving the coachman outside soaked and cold to the bone. Inside, you all huddle together for warmth as the crack of the whip drives the horses on. The journey takes roughly 3.5 hours because of the poor weather. And as you arrive, the sun has already set, and the storm grows increasingly violent as you progress. Through the rain-slick coach windows, you can see Lake Malar in the west, its foaming waves splashing against the frozen shoreline. You're traveling through a pine forest and see tall trees being knocked to the ground by tempestuous winds or split by lightning strikes. In the flashes of the storm, you see large rocks amongst the trees, moss-covered lumps silhouetted amongst the thick forest growth. Moments later, the Witch Cat Inn appears at a crossroads. It is an old building surrounded by woods with the lake to the north and the west. seems to be the only building around. As the carriage doors open, a single street lamp flickers weakly before it and beckons you forth through the rain. The coachman is eager to drop you off and continue on his route south to Sigtuna. He jumps back atop his seat before the doors are even closed, and as you cross the small muddied courtyard, the sky flashes again. In the distance, halfway between the inn and the small community to the west, you see a lonely church bell tower protruding up from the dark trees. Before you, the red door of the Witch Cat Inn awaits.
Well, I would like to get inside. This cold air is terrible for my lungs.
You first.
In.
As you are making your way...
Gothi will also make sure the coachman and the horses get where they need to go before he goes in.
Excellent. The coachman is already putting whip to the horses and turning back down the everly increasingly snowy trail. As there we go. Just calling up my notes here real quick. So before you stands the Witch Cat Inn. It is a large inn with multiple stories and towers, beautiful windows, and a small stable to the left of it. It is a large building. You can see that there's kind of a fence line, even a garden that you can kind of see a little bit through the storm and the flashes of lightning behind it. As the coachman rides away and you make your way toward the bright red door, you see a silhouetted figure standing kind of under the eaves, leaning up against one of the windows. As you approach, the bright red ash of his cigarette and the smell of it slowly reaches you. As you gain the door, he steps out and pauses before you, dropping his cigarette, smashing it out beneath his heel, and says, I am so happy that you were able to join me. I was worried you would not be able to make it through the storm. I am Olas Clint, and I am so happy to finally meet the members of the society. I am so very happy that you are here, and I am hoping that you can help me with what I have found here.
Great to meet you too. Are you happy enough to lend me a cigarette?
Olas, he kind of absent-mindedly reaches inside his kind of it's a well-worn jacket. It's not quite as pristine as it used to be, but he pulls out a small tobacco pouch and some rolling papers and hands them over to you and says, "Please, is the least I could do for you being willing to travel through such horrible weather. For those of you that don't want to stay out here in the cold, please make your way inside. We will join you quickly."
Yes, certainly. Inside would be lovely. Snorri looks at the light coming through the windows and what he assumes to be warm fire within, and makes his way past.
Samuel's gonna pull up his collar and whip out his pipe.
Maj will join Snorri inside.
I do appreciate how progressive the smoking laws are here in Sweden, despite this being the 19th century.
Dagmar is gonna follow Snorri in as well and say, couldn't agree with you more, and sort of performatively wave a hand in front of her face.
Gothi will also try to bum a cigarette off someone to join the others outside smoking.
Okay, so we've got
Smoking hot priest.
So we've got.
Yeah.
See what you did right there. So we've got Gothi, Samuel, Butterscotch, and Olas are outside smoking, and then the other 4 of you went inside, correct? Or I don't want to speak for Elen. Elen, go in.
I'm old and slow. I'm coming.
Okay, so the ones that walked through the door, I'm gonna pause for you there for a second, and I'm gonna let the folks that are outside still with Olas have a moment with him first if they would like to. So as you were all lighting up your cigarettes or your pipes, rolling them, some of you deftly, some of you spilling tobacco all over the ground because this is not something that you do often. Olas kind of he is stomping his feet, rubbing his hands. It is clear that he is a little bit cold, but he has a natural smile on his face. Though he is kind of a serious, kind of older-looking man, he still has a pleasant smile as he is helping to light your cigarettes and pipes and that kind of thing.
Jamie, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it frowned upon in the society to share like your main contact's name? Like, as in, would it be normal for me to be like, oh, do you know Linnea? Or is it like your, is it like a terrorist cell structure where you like don't say who your leader is?
That is completely up to you guys to decide. So in the past, society may have been a little bit more clandestine, just because not everybody can see what you can see in terms of Vaesen or believes in the mystical and the magical the way that you would because of the site. But it also doesn't mean that you would necessarily hide that you were part of a group. You have a castle that sits out in the middle of the city. Like, people definitely know there's somebody and someone's living there.
Thank you. I think Butterscotch was about to say something.
So Clinty, can I call you Clinty? Of course I can. Why are we here?
Right to the point. Just briefly though, if I could, what are your names? I'm familiar with the society and the fact that you study the oddities of the world, but I don't necessarily know of each of you. And he tips his hat briefly to Samuel and says, "Of course, the great detective Samuel Mäkinen I've heard of. We are both in the same profession, but I don't know the rest of you."
And I'm sure you've also heard of me, Butterscotch Horrorderve, of course. You might not recognize me with the rain.
And he actually shakes his head and says, "Oh, I have heard of you. I tend to work specifically in investigations and cases of the occult, and of course I would have heard of the great Oracle Horrorderve and your abilities with your crystal ball."
The spirits speak well of you too, Clinty.
And turns and looks at Gothi. I'll just see. I'm left. I'll pause on that. It was Gothi, Samuel, and Butterscotch, right? So we'll wait for Gothi to do an intro. But Olas will lean in and say, as to why I've asked you to come here, and I thank you for following up on my hastily scribbled note. There is something very strange going on in this inn that I have been investigating for the last month or so. A friend of mine stayed here as she was traveling north and reported some very unusual dreams that she had while here, and in her speaking with some of her traveling companions, learned that they had very similar dreams with no explanation as to how they could have shared those same experiences. In my investigations of this place, I have found that there are other odd circumstances occurring here. You may notice that this is an old inn on a strong stone foundation that has been here for a long time, and I can assure you the family that runs this are respectable. They put much time and care into the upkeep of this inn that their forefathers had built and passed down to them. Yet even though they work here as diligently as they do, the building has begun to degrade. Leaks in the roof, creaking and snapping floorboards, fireplaces that are completely choked with soot. There are things that, if I did not see with my own eyes how diligently they work to keep this place in running condition, I would think were simply the inattention or lack of care for a building of this age. But I assure you, I see them working hard, yet somehow it still degrades faster than it should. With these strange dreams, with the odd things going on in the in itself, I am sure that something occult is happening here. My resources are expended, and all I could think to do was to call in experts who might be able to help me to determine what it is that is happening here, and see if we can't locate the disturbance and possibly remove it, so that this inn can return to its former status, and we can make people safe as they travel toward Upsala. I'm hoping that your expertise in your various fields will be able to help here. But specifically, and he kind of makes eye contact with the three of you that are smoking with him, I am hoping that our shared ability of the sight may be of use to us. I have only minor abilities myself, but I have heard, through my contacts in the occult, I have heard of the society. I have heard of your abilities to see that which others can't, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to help me here with that.
Of course, we'd be happy to help you.
So let's say our cigarettes are spun out, and he's like, it's freezing out here, and we're getting wet. Let us go in and join your friends and see if we can't have a discussion and determine what we might be able to do. And he opens up the door, and he leads you guys inside. Let me just do this here real quick. If you guys open up the tactical map, you will see that I have placed you just inside the door as you have wandered into the Witch Cat Inn.
Thunder snow.
Did the inside group make any moves in that few minutes?
Yeah, you can. So you guys all have free action to move your tokens about as you enter into kind of the main great room of the inn. You can see that there is a large, kind of rough-jacketed man with a grand beard and striking blue eyes working behind the bar. There is a young woman, kind of freckled but sad of face, who is working the different tables. There is a tall man in a black vest and white shirt who is also walking amongst the different people that are sitting around. You can see that two of the tables have people sitting at it, and also one of the couches on the far side of the room. On the right side of the room, there is two large fireplaces both with giant crackling fires going. There are lights and candles about the room, but you also notice that here and there are buckets collecting water dripping through from the ceiling. Even though the fires are roaring, the room is colder than you would expect. You can see that there is a doorway kind of in the back left half of the room, a staircase there that also goes upstairs. And just as kind of an aside, a little bit of a metagaming note here, I'm not using the Fog of War feature in here because that can negatively affect the performance on some folks' PCs. So you can see the whole map at this layer. I will simply say that what you see is not what your characters see, so try and think about it from that perspective as you move about and do different things. It's really going to come down to like what your characters see and can do. Okay? But there is no grid system, there's no like set distance for movement, that kind of thing, so feel free to move your characters about inside the room as you would like and kind of put them where you think they would be.
Cool. If anyone's near the door still, actually, I think Butterscotch will head for Elin, wherever the Maestra is. Give her a quick Oh no! First, as we walk in, Clinty, it might be better if we blend in with drinks in our hand. Do you have a tab open, or?
I would be happy to pay for your drinks this evening. Please make yourselves comfortable. I have already met with the proprietor, Sammy. He is the man currently working behind the bar. Just let him know that you are here with Olas, and he will make sure that we pay for your drinks.
Oh, fantastic. And Butterscotch will grab a beverage and then head over to Elin and give her the short summary of what Clinty said. Clint.
It looks like Elin has kind of gone over and sat next to one of the other folks here on one of the comfortable couches. As you're sitting there, this tall man, very tall, very lanky, walks up and nods his head to Elin and asks, "Excuse me, is there anything that I can get you? We have cocktails, beer, mead, hot teas, and coffee if you're cold from the weather outside. The kitchen is still open as well. If you'd like some food, I can certainly put in a request for you. Is there anything that I can get you?"
Some tepid tonic water and some biscuits, please. It's cold, it's horrible. Why? Oh, my bones. Yeah, give me my tonic, please. Please get that first.
One eyebrow kind of raises, and he turns on a heel and quickly makes his way to the bar to get you your drink. And I will we'll say that Butterscotch is kind of whispering in your ear and telling you what Olas had shared with them outside. What else are folks doing? What would you like to do?
Asking Sammy how long he's been around.
So as you walk up to the bar and sit down, you see this, he's a short, stout man, probably in his mid-50s, late 50s, big, large beard, beautiful blue eyes, but very loud. You see as he leans into the kitchen and gives orders, you can hear that there was someone in there who was arguing back with him, and you just hear Sammy bellow, "There's only one captain of this ship, and it's me!" And he walks back out, and he's making drinks, and he's clinking bottles and making a lot of noise. As you catch his eye and ask that question, how long has he been here? He says, he kind of gives you a bit of a rough look, one eyebrow up, and tells you, "I've been here my whole life. My family built this place. My father and grandfather both worked it. I work it. Someday I'll hand it down to my good-for-nothing daughter if she ever gets her head straight."
Is that who's back in the kitchen?
That's my daughter? Not a chance. Not a chance. That's the help. That's the cook. My daughter knows not to talk back to me the way that the cook does. If I didn't need her so bad, the cook would be on the street. My daughter knows she can't raise her voice like that. That's my daughter over there. He points across the room, and you see that there is a young woman who is currently talking to an older man who is wearing a... So that's Sammy. The older man is this gentleman, kind of done up in priest's vestments, very rough-looking face. And the young woman that is currently talking to him is this young girl right here. So he points at her and says, that's my good-for-nothing dog.
I'll take a whiskey neat, please.
So he reaches down, grabs a bottle, starts pouring you a drink. Very, and you notice that even though he's kind of a larger man or kind of stout and thick hands, he's very deft with the bottles and the glasses. He clearly knows his business.
Maj would like a coffee, please. Black. Does your wife also assist you here?
As you say wife, Sammy's face goes white for a second and then flushes red, and his brows furrow, and he says, we don't talk about my wife here. She's gone. She died. We don't talk about her. It's just me and my daughter here now. And he turns and walks back to the kitchen, and you hear him screaming again about putting a pot of coffee on, and to be quick with it.
As whenever he says that his wife is gone, Gothi will do the appropriate like signs and prayers of like God rest her soul, cross himself kind of thing, but also ask for a glass of wine.
And Dagmar is gonna sidle up between Maj and Gothi and ask also for a glass of wine. She's gonna ask for it, a glass of house white chilled, please.
Sammy reaches down and jokingly states, the icebox is one of the only things that seems not to have broken around here. And as he's opening the door to like try and grab the wine from the icebox, the door on it cracks, and you hear like, God damn it, everything around this place is breaking. But he gets your wine out and pours it for you and kind of slams the door, which only you can hear the hinges only creaking and cracking and breaking even more.
Dagmar is going to say, "Thank you. I'm so sorry. Is this a recent development?"
Oh, you'd think this place was 300 years old rather than just 125. All the repairs I'm putting into this place seem to be going for naught. Everything's falling apart. As you can see, the roof is leaking everywhere. We had it redone, literally, with my own hands just a year ago, and somehow it's leaking everywhere. I'm starting to think this place is cursed. But it's been in my family the whole time, and that's where it's gonna stay. So I'll figure it out somehow. But with all the problems we've had of late, there's not as many people stopping by and staying. And if they do stop in, they don't tend to stay very long. I've got a bunch of rooms upstairs I'm completely unrented. It's no good for business. No good, I tell you.
Well, we would love to stay here, of course. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask. He's got a loud voice. Yes.
Oh yeah. Sammy is very.
So Snorri over by the fireplace. Snorri has practically crawled into the fireplace over there. He's trying to get warm. Would he be able to hear Sammy from across the room there? He's not necessarily listening intently.
You would be able to pick up. You'd be able to pick up a bunch of what he's saying.
Yeah, and enough to have known when he pointed out his daughter.
And let me have you this. Let me have you just roll an observation. See if there's some additional information.
While he's doing that, I have I'm gonna say I walked over to this rain bucket.
Okay.
And as he yelled out, all of his stuff, he's just gonna mumble under his breath. Maybe if your bubbling personality would be better, more people would stay here.
Let me go here for a second.
I'm going to complain to Butterscotch that the inside of this place is not much different than it is outside. The bones are still achy from all the moisture. Why is it wet in here? Why is everything leaking everywhere we go? Where's my tonic?
So, as Samuel says that about his personality, Sammy hears you, walks to the end of the bar where he's kind of standing over a few casks of brandy and says, "If you don't like the treatment in this place, you don't have to stay here." And just kind of stares right at Samuel. Right, let's pause there for a second because Snorri had rolled and got 2 successes. So in your observations around the room, there's a few things that Snorri notices. First and foremost is that the decor of the room, the way it's set up, this clearly was once a very, very nice inn. But you can see that there are parts of the floor that look like they're rotting. One of the chimneys is kind of kicking back smoke because it's just not going up past the flue correctly. The lights seem to kind of flicker as if there's disruptions to their power. The dripping buckets are all over the place, of different size. Some on tables, some near the stairs, some near the fireplace. And no matter where you stand near the fire, even though there's solid walls and windows around you, you constantly feel a draft. So there's definitely something kind of strange there. You also notice that as Sammy gets loud at different points, the louder he gets, you notice that Sophia, this young girl right here, she cringes. She kind of rolls her shoulders and kind of hunches down a little bit. It's clear she's not comfortable with the outbursts from her father.
My good man, there's no need to be upset. Have you had a priest come and you said it was cursed? Perhaps we just need to cleanse it. I'd be happy to provide the service myself.
Oh, I know it's not cursed. The Father Niels over there has been here every night. He looks around it for me. He says there's nothing here. It's just the old bones of this building. The upkeep just needs to be done. And he kind of storms off into the kitchen to check on some of the food orders and the coffee.
Another man of the cloth. Then Gothi will head off towards the priest.
It's this gentleman.
Dagmar is going to follow him.
Was this priest, Father Niels, and Sophia, they were talking before?
She's taking his dinner order. They're kind of, and they are just kind of talking a little bit. He's being very picky about what he wants to eat, and she is trying to make sure that she gets his order correct.
So he's talking. She's not necessarily engaging with him. That she's just doing her job.
He's not even looking at her. He's staring into his wine cup and talking about what he wants for dinner and how hard it is. He doesn't have enough people at his church. The people around here are not pious enough. He's full of complaints of all various natures. He's saying that he wants to order the pork, but it better not have as much fat on it as it did last time. Yeah. So I want to jump back to Elin and Butterscotch. So Elin is definitely kind of feeling the effects of the bad place. The tall waiter comes back over with your requested items, your tepid tonic, and says, if there's anything else that you need, please, my name is Sven. Feel free to call for me. I'm happy to come over and bring you anything else that you might require while you are here at the Witch Cat. So
thank you, Sven.
I want to make sure everybody gets a chance as we kind of go around. So let's
Sure.
have Butterscotch, Elin, and then Maj before I come back to Dagmar, Gothi, Samuel, and Snorri.
Butterscotch will pick up on Elin's comment about the place. Like, Elin, you described it to a T, as you always do. This place certainly has seen better days, but some of the clientele seems quite lovely, and noted then to the person sitting next to Elin. Who might you be? Or we'll start with Butterscotch or what's my name? Butterscotch Horrorderve at your service. Who might you be?
So as you engage with her, this is what she looks like. Sven is going to kind of head back to check on this gentleman over here. She kind of looks up from a book that she has that she was taking some notes, and says, I'm sorry. My name is Lisa Finkel. I'm simply traveling through on my way to Upsala. I'm sorry. Are you a local? She clearly seems a little distracted.
Actually, we're visiting up from the capital. Just got in. How long have you been here?
I just arrived this evening, just ahead of the storm. I'm holding up here, hoping I might be able to catch a coach or carriage tomorrow to make the rest of the trip. I am trying to urgently get to meet some friends in Upsala.
Well, it's go ahead, Elin.
Elin chimes in. You, Lisa, you look just like I did a couple of years ago. So much like. Are you here to meet maybe some fellow friends as part of a book club?
And she kind of looks down at the book that she's reading, and she closes it, and you notice that it is a book on medicinal chemistry. And she says, "No, I'm simply studying. I work as a chemist, and I'm just simply trying to pass the time while I'm here, touching up on some of my knowledge." And as she's doing this, her gestures get more and more flowing and kind of intricate as she's talking. Not really sure why, but she seems to have it's like everything she starts doing suddenly has some kind of physical component to it. Like she's got to point to the book and rub the cover, and just large flowing gestures with her hands as she talks. Constantly kind of fiddling and moving her hair and adjusting her glasses, that kind of thing.
I too have studied some chemistry myself. So what kind of chemistry do you do? Do you apply this to some form of work?
As you say that, she stands up and says, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I really would prefer not to be interrupted. I have things to read. You'll have to excuse me. I'm just going to go find myself a table. Maybe order some food to pass the time. And she kind of immediately walks away across the room and sits at the table where she can kind of see both you and Butterscotch across the room. She's got her book propped up, and it's clear that she's not really reading. She's looking over the top of it at the two of you. And as she walked away, she seemed a little unsteady on her feet.
Butterscotch is really surprised, because usually he has to try a few pickup lines before he gets this kind of response. So just trying to watch her walk away and try to figure out what might have set her off.
Let's do... I think this would be an observation.
Huzzah.
I would say that Butterscotch's best guess is that Miss Finkel is under the effects of some kind of narcotic. The instability of her walk, the flowering gestures, the constant fiddling with things would indicate to you some kind of influence, whether that be alcohol or drugs of some kind. In your experience in the occult, and sometimes using illicit substances to put yourself in the right mind frame to speak to the other side, you've seen these types of effects before. Something is going on with Lisa.
Turning back to Ellen. Well, Maestra, what do you think she's smoking?
Well, she's got to be high to not want to talk to me about anything scientific.
And, I figured that she and I might have some other kind of chemistry.
I think she does her own chemistry to make her change her chemistry.
We'll try to share a sly smile with Ellen. Like, is there a grin there? Is she happy with that? Yeah.
While you guys are having your conversation, let me jump to Maj. So Sammy has come back out. He's put a hot cup of coffee and tells you there's more where that came from. He's got a hot pot that he's kind of keeping behind the bar. And while you're sitting there, Olas, who is kind of watching the rest of your group move about the room, leans in and says, it's certainly strange, isn't it? I know from my investigation that this inn was redecorated within the last year. But look at the deterioration. The rugs are already beginning to rot. The boards are breaking. You should see the garden out back, how overgrown it is. Have you ever seen anything like this?
And just kind of spins around with sitting with his back to the bar and sipping on the coffee. And I said, "Flies, I have memories of being here and it being a well-run, clean establishment. If you like to sleep inside, and it looks like it's just been completely ignored. What kind of overgrowth are you seeing out in the garden?"
It's just, to be honest, what I've heard from some of the locals, the garden hasn't been as well cared for since Naomi passed. Is it Naomi? Am I getting that name correct? Let me check that real quick. Nora, not Naomi. Since Nora passed, that was Sammy's former wife. The garden, even though she's not here to care for it the way that she did, it was still quite beautiful from what I've heard from other travelers. But now half of the garden doesn't want to grow, the other half is falling in disrepair. There's an old conservatory that Naomi used to use as a greenhouse in the back, and from what I could see earlier, the entire roof is caved in. It's the amount of deterioration does not account for the amount of time that has passed. And that's not even the worst part of it. You should hear some of the rumors and reports from people who have stayed here that I interview. They speak of these horrible dreams and nightmares where they wake up screaming, feeling like someone is cutting their throat with a razor, or that they're being buried alive. Some even report that they feel both, being stabbed, buried alive, and as if their best friend is some kind of devil. Others say that they feel like they're set up on a stage where suddenly they're stabbed by other actors around them, and the audience just applauds the violence and the blood that drips to their feet. And it's over and over and over again, these types of reports of these dreams of people who stay here. It doesn't surprise me that there's no one renting the rooms upstairs. If that's what people dream of when they stay here, I certainly wouldn't be here for an extended stay.
Are we speaking quietly enough that Sammy can't hear us?
Yeah, Olas is whispering to you.
Okay.
Samuel, so Jeanette's character, could probably lean in and hear some of this as well.
Oh yeah, I'm listening.
I make eye contact with Samuel. Look at Olas and I'd say, I know that I mentioned his wife, Sammy's wife, and he became rather irate. Said we wouldn't speak of it. What do you know how she passed?
That there is an interesting story depending upon who you ask. But, the rumor was that Nora and Sammy have different views of what is fulfilling in life. Sammy is, as you can see, very focused on this inn and passing it down to his daughter Sophia. But Nora had a very strong interest in the unknown, in the arts. There's even some rumors that she may have been interested in the occult, but I haven't been able to verify any of that. It's rumored that Nora began seeing strange figures about the inn. Even to the point where there were nights where she would swear she could hear footsteps moving about upstairs in the attic. What I do know is that sometime after that, Sammy and Nora had a fight, and she left. There's something about inviting actors to come here and put on shows, and Sammy doesn't believe in it'll help the business in any way to have actors and musicians parading about his inn. The argument, from what I've heard from, he points across the room, and there is a kind of jovial-looking, definitely inebriated farmer in kind of rough homespun wool clothing, enjoying a giant mug of ale. As Sammy points at him, he says, that's Jonathan. He's a local farmer and a close friend of Sammy's. But I think he was a closer friend of Nora's. And he talks that Nora's insistence on having performers here enraged Sammy. And if what he says is true, it may have turned violent. Shortly thereafter, it's rumored that Nora ran away. And unfortunately died traveling the roads with some traveling actors. When the report came back, Sammy was enraged that not only had she left him in the business, but she had left to join up with an actors troupe. He does not believe in anything that isn't practical, and he doesn't see the arts as being anything but a waste of time. I fear that's part of the reason why he and poor Sophia don't get along. She has some of the same proclivities as her mother, and Sammy doesn't want to indulge in any of it. It's how many people rent, how much coin he makes, how many meals he serves for poor Sammy, I think. So let's switch. Does Samuel have anything to add or ask before we move to the next group?
Yep. Overhearing this, he's just going to ask, with Sammy's perspective on the arts, what does that mean for Dance of Dreams?
Are you whispering it?
Nope.
Alrighty, look at something here real quick. And just as an FYI, I have hidden most of my GM rules to make the horror that much more fun. But I am doing some rolls in the background. So as you say that, Sammy comes walking back out of the kitchen and hears you mention the Dance of Dreams. And you see his face just flushes red. And he leans out over the bar and he says, "What is this about? Everybody keeps asking me about this Dance of Dreams, saying that they heard there was some show that was going to be put on here. There's no show at the Witch Cat Inn. Why are you bringing it up? What did you hear?"
I'm going to pull the invitation out of my coat and slide it across the
So Sammy reaches forward and grabs it in one of his kind of meaty fists. He reads through it. And his brow furrows and he's red. And he just screams out, Sophia! Kitchen! And he goes storming away into the kitchen behind him. Across the room, you see Sophia's shoulders climb up to her ears as she kind of hunches, and you see that she, turning to Dagmar and Gothi, who have walked up to the table, and Father Niels, who is sitting there, she's like, Father, I'll put your order immediately. I promise you, the pork will be better than last time. I've got to go speak with my father. And she immediately goes rushing off for the kitchen.
Snorri is going to actually kind of try to make it kind of look casual, like he just decided he was going to walk across the room at that point, but kind of follow a few steps behind her. Okay. And maybe, like, if possible, kind of perch over around here.
Sure. Absolutely.
And see if I can hear anything through the kitchen.
Okay. So as they set up there, Dagmar, Gothi, what would you like to do? So you hear this, you hear the scream from Sammy, you see Sophia go kind of scuttling across the room. What would the two of you like to do before I move on to the kitchen?
Just quick question, would they have had a chance to talk with Sophia before she got called to the kitchen?
If you had interrupted the conversation that was kind of going on with the father, sure. You can retcon that.
I assumed that we were having, like, the bar conversation that we had was, like, simultaneous with what was going on at the table and the conversation she had. At least time-wise, that's what I assumed. Okay. It's wonderful to see another man of the cloth. I'm sorry we haven't met before. I'm Gothi Bodil. What is your name, sir?
The priest looks up at you, kind of up and down, and says, I'm Father Niels Clawhead. I'm the priest at Bilby Church, which would have been the church bell tower that you saw kind of off to the west.
Oh, wonderful. How do you like this parish? I used to work rural parishes myself. Always wonderful communities I found, but...
I would say that this area was once filled with good, hard-working, simple people. But as more and more of the children head to the cities, I find that my church is not as full as it once was. It's part of the eradication of good, strong values.
Couldn't agree more. I myself often work at the church in the city in order to try to save some of these souls. Have you been here long? As you
agree with him, the father kind of looks you up and down a little bit more, kind of gives you a more praising glance, and turns his hand and kind of offers you, if you want to sit down, please. If you'd like to, it's not often I get to speak with another man of faith. Please, feel free to sit.
Thank you, sir. Of course I'll sit down, and he'll man-spread pretty hard. He's got long legs, it's like somewhat natural, I assume.
Natural enough.
Yeah. How long have you been in the area?
I have been lucky to look after this flock for the last 38 years.
Oh, such service to our Lord. This is, I haven't been in here in a number of years, but I have a friend who spoke highly of this inn. But it's not quite what I expected. Has it always been like this?
Don't tell me that you're one of these frivolous priests that believes in curses and such ready signs of the devil in our day-to-day lives. building is run down
Well-
because Sammy doesn't take care of it. He's asked me multiple times that this place is cursed, and I tell you, there's no such thing here. It's just an old inn in bad shape.
So you've already tried to bless it. I mean, we both know the devil works in our everyday lives. Perhaps through sloth in Sammy's case, though he seems quite active.
Yes, simple blessing, and it did absolutely nothing. As I told you, the place is not cursed. It is simply Sammy not spending his funds appropriately, and a lack of a woman's touch since Nora passed away.
Of course, a home needs a man and a woman.
As you're having this conversation, what does Dagmar do?
So Dagmar went over this way because she wanted to speak to Sophia.
Gotcha.
One thing about her is that if she can be said to unbend in a sort of automatic way to a few types of people, and one of those types of people is other women in service, and so she feels a lot of sympathy for her, and she wants to sort of try to get a sense of how she's doing. So she would be sort of keeping one ear on this priest conversation while trying to engage Sophia.
Okay. So as that conversation is happening, Sophia was just kind of quickly taking notes about what the father wanted. As she's about to kind of turn to go to the kitchen, she actually stops and asks you, is there anything that you needed? Anything that I can get you? I'm about to go put some orders in. And this is
No. Your father.
We'll retcon that, so it's before Sammy calls.
Yeah, before Sammy yells. Yeah, your father's taking good care of me. Thank you. And she holds up her glass of wine. I'm Dagmar. I'm in service in the city. I noticed you seem to have a little bit of a difficult task on your hands, and she kind of makes her eyes look toward the priest, who presumably is now engaged with Gothi, and so she sort of lets the corners of her mouth go up a little bit, like, we both know how these people are.
And so Sophia kind of leans in and whispers a little bit. He's very particular, but the father is a good man. He just is a little rough around the edges with the way that he speaks to people.
Oh, of course. Tell me, who trained you? I learned everything I know from both my parents.
It was my dearly departed mother. My father runs the books in the bar, but it was my mother that ran the garden and the kitchens. And I've been working here for as long as I can remember. This is the only home I've ever known.
Oh, wow. I am so sorry to hear that. Tell me, were there any practices to keep the inn going that your mother really stood by and that she taught you to follow?
Just the hard work and elbow grease, that nothing fixes itself. A job done well is a job done right. Mother very much loved this place. That's why I'm so sure it was hard for her to leave it the way that she did.
Of course. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't want to keep you. I just noticed that you were doing, that you were working very hard.
As she is about to, she kind of turns back to Father Niels to let him know, his order will be put in, just to kind of interrupt a little bit his conversation with Gothi. You notice that it's just Dagmar that notices this. Sophie's eyes kind of go unfocused for a second. You hear in a very low voice as she whispers,
thought that was what you were saying. She whispered.
No.
I was like, is there a cat?
No. So as her eyes kind of go unfocused, you hear her whisper, "Fate to decline is anger. Perry cannot kill me again." And all of a sudden, like, her eyes refocus, and then that's when Sammy yells. And you see her shoulders hunch, and she says, I'm sorry, I've got to go. And she goes running across the room to the kitchens.
Would I know what Piri or who Piri is?
So that is a name we have heard before. Does anybody remember where we heard Piri?
Oh. Yes.
Who was Piri?
That was old innkeeper. Also a Thursday's child.
I think like the original person that built the inn. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that would be that would be Sammy's grandfather. Piri was a former member of the society who let them use the Witch Cat Inn as kind of a temporary headquarters and meeting place after the fires in Upsala.
Yeah.
So Piri can't kill me again?
Yep.
Is that what she said?
Yep.
Dagmar is going to sort of shake her head, look a little bit alarmed, and she's going to look around. And she's going to see that Maj and Olaus are by themselves at the bar, and she's going to approach them because she wants to tell someone what she just heard and saw. And she doesn't want to be overheard, so she's gonna go back over to the bar to those two, and she's gonna repeat what she just heard as quietly as she can.
Okay. So as you over there, I'm gonna jump back to Sammy and Sophia in the kitchen. So Samuel and Snorri, you are both close enough to hear this, even though as Sophia went through, there's kind of a swing door, and she kind of pulls it partially shut. But you hear Sammy just screaming at him. I told you we wouldn't be doing these kind of things. I don't care how much you think it would help the business. I assure you, having that kind of frivolity here would not. There's only one captain of this ship. I've told you how it's going to be, and I'm tired of you trying to step outside your bounds. Take care of the room's upstairs, feed the people when they ask for it, and learn your place. And Sophia's like, Father, if you would only listen to Mother, I tell you, this would be a good thing. And as soon as she says, if you had listened to Mother, Sammy slaps her across the face. And Sophia begins crying, and you hear a third voice, kind of an older female voice, say, if you raise one more hand, Sammy, I swear to you, I swear on this place, I swear on your grandfather, I'll take that hand from you. And as you hear that, Sophia comes running out of the kitchen, head down, crying, and you see that she just goes and runs upstairs.
Dagmar is going to follow.
Okay. I'm going to just put you at the stairs for right now.
Yeah.
Sammy comes back out of the kitchen, and the two of you can just vaguely see a very large, like almost 6 foot, full-framed woman with bright red curly hair, and she's got a giant meat cleaver in one hand, and she's got like an apron on. It's covered in like gravy and flour. It's clearly the cook, and she's waving the cleaver at Sammy, saying, I don't care how angry she makes you. If you lay one more hand on that girl, it'll be the last thing that hand ever does. Get out of my kitchen. And he's, you don't tell me how to run my own place. I swear to God, woman, if I find a replacement for you, you'll be out on your ass. And he comes out into the bar, and he's slamming bottles and stuff around, cleaning up angrily, daring any of you to kind of meet his eye.
Is Father Niels having any reaction to this?
Yeah, is anyone else,
Yeah,
I guess?
So as you... Okay, so roll... let me have both of you roll observation rolls, please.
They do that. Madge makes direct eye contact with Sammy.
Okay.
Oh my god, I roll so many dice.
So excited. There's a show.
You could choose to push if you want to. Otherwise, it will reduce what you learn from the roll.
I don't think I will push at this point.
Yahtzee.
No, I am not going to push either.
Okay. So you look around and you see that, like, Lisa is just kind of looking down to her book, not trying to make eye contact. Sven is kind of stepping in between the farmer and his view of the kitchen. Father Niels, however, watches Sammy come out and slam these things around and turns back to Gothi and says, as you can see, one of my flock is a rather explosive man. But as they say, with great passions come great actions.
Great actions? What do you mean by that?
The man has single-handedly kept this place going after his wife ran away from him, and his daughter, as lovely as she might be, does not follow the rules of her father. A little more piety, a little more adherence to those who put food on your table might benefit that young girl. And he goes back to drinking his wine.
Oh, he'll like murmur some things that sound vaguely affirmative, but nothing concrete.
So Sammy is kind of going back and forth behind the bar. Let's see here. So a few moments pass as Sophie runs by. Dagmar begins to follow. Sammy is slamming things kind of back and forth, and you hear the rain outside just pelting harder and harder. Hail and rain against the sides of the building. The buckets, the sound of the leaky roof dripping into the buckets getting even louder. And as you kind of all look about the room, making eye contact with one another, in this very uncomfortable situation of Sammy and the violence against Sophia, all of a sudden this strange wave kind of seems to pass through the entire room. You notice that all of the lamps, lights, and the fires suddenly go dim, flickering out, and they come back with a slight bluish color, darkening the entire room. The fires still burn, but they're getting no heat. Temperature in the entire room drops till it feels like the inn is freezing cold, and you can begin to see your own breath. Around you, Sammy and each of the other guests outside of your party, and this includes Olas, suddenly fall asleep where they sit. Their eyes close, their heads go back. Sammy falls to the ground. You can hear someone in the kitchen fall to the ground. And they all begin snoring. We are going to need to make our very first fear check. So if you... this is one of the mechanics in Vaesen to see how your character is able to handle weird occurrences, finding dead bodies, encountering Vaesen, the paranormal. So everybody has to roll a weird shit, exactly. So everybody has to roll either a logic or an empathy test. Excuse me, is it logic and empathy? I think it's logic. Let me just check here real quick. Yeah, so it's logic or empathy. You can choose which you use, and it's just a straight logic or empathy test. The difference is going to be you do get to add 3 more dice. So if you roll and fail, just roll a 3d6 for me. You can either click on the little icon in the bottom and choose 3d6, or you can type in /roll space 3d6. But if you succeed, you don't need to add the additionals. If you fail, though, make sure you roll those.
Sorry, how do I roll the dice again?
So bottom left-hand corner, where
Yeah.
you've got your skills and attributes, you can choose either logic or empathy. Choose whichever one has the higher score. If you click on it or right-click on it, it'll give you the option to test.
Yeah, I did that, and I got a 0.
So if you want to roll additional dice, in the bottom, there's that where you've got like the cog in the microphone, the middle icon, the little swirly one for Vaesen. Click on that, it'll pop up and let you choose 1d, 2d, 3d6. Just roll 3d6.
I don't have a dice.
So very bottom center of your screen, there's like the white circle. When you click on that, it should pop up and give you like a series of dice to choose from above it.
Sorry,
Yep,
got
that's
it.
okay.
Thank you.
Is this a roll we can push on?
This is. So who let me just roll back up here and see who has succeeded. So okay, so Dagmar succeeded, Snorri succeeded, Butterscotch succeeded, Maj succeeded on the with the additional 3 dice.
Was it just me and Samuel were the only
Yeah.
ones that didn't succeed?
Sammy didn't. Okay.
No, I didn't either.
Sammy,
Okay.
Sammy, Elin, and Gothi did not pass. So what that means?
Oops.
I have like a 5 logic too. Sorry.
It's so this is.
I know I
it's-
have a 5
too.
empathy.
Yeah.
So I
Whoa,
don't-
what just happened? I didn't roll that on purpose. Oh well. Triple success?
Yeah.
From already a success? I don't know what that is.
Okay. Okay, so when you fail a fear test, if you want to, you can push on it. If you fail again, you will get a condition plus the results of failing the fear. Whereas if you don't push, it will just be the results of failing the fear.
I think Gothi still wants to push.
Let me just check one quick thing here. If we can push on a fear. I don't remember if we did that when I played.
Yeah, I think I would push too.
I'm worried about the condition.
Yeah.
I'm already fragile. I just old lady, 51.
Okay. Yeah, so if you... What's that? Okay. Let me scroll down. So if you guys want to push, you can. So if you want, you can just re-roll logic or empathy and then re-roll the 3d6 if you don't pass this time. But it means that you will take a condition by pushing. Yeah, you can just click on the push button if you want, but it'll re-roll the total amount of dice that you have.
Oh, there's a push button?
Yeah, it should be just below.
Yeah,
the
right
roll.
below.
Okay, so Sammy,
Oh, yeah,
Sammy passed, but it does mean that you're going to have to take a mental condition. Because when you
Yep. So how do I do that?
well, let's get everybody else done first, just in case anybody else is going to do it. So Gothi pushes, gets a success. Okay, so you'll just take a condition, but not the fear. and then we got to get Elen to roll.
Did you decide to roll,
if you want
Elen?
to push. If you want to push.
Yeah. I don't want a condition. I already got plenty of conditions.
Okay. So I will start here then. Let's apply the conditions. So for both of you, if you are looking at your character kind of portrait in the middle of the screen, you will notice that you have to the left and rights of your picture mental and physical. So logic is a mental ability. So if you click on the mental side, it will pop up a conditions with a slider or a plus or a minus. Just add 1 and click on the check mark at the bottom, and you will notice that the mental bar begins to fill up red, and it will tell you that you have, instead of mental 0, it'll now say mental 1. Make sense?
Yep.
It said something about the Vaesen dice pool decreased by 1. Are we hurting
Yes.
the whole group when we do this?
So just yours, just you. So conditions take away from your.
Oh, just me.
from-
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So now when you roll any ability that is mental, so logic or empathy or any of their associated skills, it will reduce 1 from your overall dice pool.
Oh, I did not realize that when I decided to push. I thought it was a different.
No, so it begins to take away from.
Can I unpush?
Sure, if you want to. It does
Can I
mean
take the fear instead?
You absolutely can. So if you want to remove that, go right ahead. There was something I covered at the beginning.
Yeah,
probably
I
before you
didn't
did that.
realize
It's okay.
that.
So the other two, however, are going to then take the effects of the fear. So what that means, and this is in the bottom of this combat and injuries, if you just wanted to see it as a reference, it's all the way down at the very bottom under special effects. So fear is extremely important in Vaesen. It's when you encounter them, they're exposed to magic, dead bodies, that kind of thing. When you fail it, and this was a fear test of 1, so all you need is 1 success to be able to get past it, it means that you're terrified. So I need both of you to roll just a flat d6, just one of them. So we got a 4 and a 1. Okay, so technically this is going to be how many rounds you are both terrified because of this event. Okay, at the end of those rounds, which will just kind of be as we rotate through conversations or make moves, I'll let you guys know when we get through that point, but it's not going to be very long. But while you are terrified, you have to do one of the following. You can either flee, freeze, faint, or attack. So if you flee, you have to use any and all actions that you have. Anything that you do when we come to you on your turn, you have to try to run as far away from where you currently are as possible. You can freeze and say you've kind of frozen. Your body doesn't know how to react. You're just kind of stuck frozen where you are in fear. You can faint and just go limp and kind of pass out for the number of rounds. Or you can try to attack the nearest hostile person or creature with whatever weapon you have in your hands. So think of it, this is kind of, it's fight or flight, right? You've become terrified by this wave of fear that spread throughout the building. So for those rounds, think about which of those things your character will do. What do you think Gothi would do?
In this scenario, Gothi would definitely freeze, is reliving some trauma right now.
Okay. And what do we think Elin would do for her round? Would she flee?
Her achy
freeze?
bones and muscles just kind of stiffen up, and she kind of locks up on the couch.
All right, so you're both kind of frozen for a few moments. The rest of you, having passed this fear test, you feel this wave that passes over as, again, all the lights change. The room gets freezing cold. The lights don't seem to kind of come back, and where they do, they're this low blue flickering light. And everybody around you is now asleep, with the exception of those of you that came from this society. What would you guys like to do?
Butterscotch makes a quick comment of, well, that was a lot. Notices Sven's, looks like service might be a little slower, right, Elin? Then looks over to Elin and sees her frozen. Oh, Elin, not again. Come on now, snap out of it. Give her a slight tap on the cheek. Elin, you're all right?
So we'll say that she's... Perfect. as Butterscotch is trying to kind of get Ellen to move, the rest of you that are downstairs, what are you doing as you see everybody kind of fall asleep and feel this preternatural cold settle in?
Dagmar would like to try to figure out the source, or like, where did it start? Does there seem to be a place that it's emanating from? This kind of thing.
Okay. Let's see here. I think that would be... I will let you choose between either investigation or vigilance. Because one is used to kind of track things, but the other one is used to kind of read a crime scene. So investigation is the crime scene, vigilance is more of like tracking about itself. Either or for you.
Okay. So I have the hurricane lamp, which helps with investigation.
Okay.
Since it's dark in here, would that help me?
You could certainly pull it out and turn the light on and have that. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna add that, and it says hurricane lamp investigation.
It should, all right. If you right click, does it let you do a test? We'll see if it adds all the dice.
Used.
Yep.
All right. So I have used.
So yeah, use.
There we go.
There we go. Unfortunately, no successes, even with all those dice. It's a lot of 4s and 1s.
No! That's so weird. All right. I'll put the lamp away. I'm not pushing this. That's awful. I just used up all my luck on that random other one that I didn't mean to do.
Okay. So Dagmar's trying to determine where it came from, and it swept through the room so quickly that you weren't really able to determine where it was. You were just about to go up the stairs to follow Sophia as it hit, and as you turn around, you see everybody kind of falling asleep and slumping, other than your peers. What would Snorri like to do?
Snorri would like to look at the... So you said that all the lights... And these are electric lights,
correct?
Right? Or
there's a few candles about the room, like there's candles on the tables, but otherwise all the things mounted, they're all electric lights on the walls, yeah.
And they've turned blue, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Snorri would like to go over to the nearest light bulb and sort of try and figure out, like, what is... Like, tap on it. Why? How has it turned blue? How has this possibly happened?
Let's do investigation.
Jeez.
You guys are getting all the good rolls out now. If you wanna push it, you can.
Not yet. Not just with the light bulb.
As you're looking at the light bulb, it's just, for some reason, whatever the warm amber glow has been replaced by blue. You don't see anything unusual with the light bulb itself, but it's also not as bright as it was when you first walked in either. Mm-hmm. What would anyone else like to do?
Maj is like shivers, starts scanning the room, looking around for threats, and then chucks a little bit of his coffee onto Sammy's face just to see if he wakes up.
Tuck that back here. So the hot coffee, not you. Miles is growling.
Was that Miles?
That's Miles.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I thought you made like a rumbling thunder sound.
Miles. Oh, I heard somebody in the hallway. I've got to be hyper vigilant.
Somebody had the gall to walk past in the hallway.
How dare you?
Yeah. Hang on, just one here. Miles. Gotta go make sure Mom is safe. So the hot coffee falls on Sammy's face, and he doesn't move. He just continues snoring, kind of laying in a heap awkwardly behind the bar.
Tell me it's blistering.
It wasn't boiling coffee. It was hot coffee.
Damn
It's
it.
a lawsuit. Millions of dollars, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't know much about the occult or any supernatural, other than what he's encountered in the woods. But
you could still roll an
Jamie, how long?
You could roll an observation. You could roll an investigation. See if there's anything new that you learn. You don't know shit.
we ain't found shit.
Oh my god. All these dice and not a single 6? What is happening?
Jamie, if you'll allow, Butterscotch's check on Ellen would be pretty quick. Like once I, she's not dying. You know,
and we'll
this
say
isn't
that
the first time she's.
Yeah, and we'll say that's been around. So as you're checking Ellen and kind of shaking her, she comes back to herself and is able to shed off the effects of the fear.
Excellent. Okay. Would like give her a nod. It's like, well, it looks like it's time to actually get to work. And we'll pull out his. He has a small lamp or lantern attached to his belt, but it's actually a crystal ball with some metal around it to keep it disguised. And would like to bring that out. It's like, I mean, there's obviously spirits at work right now. We just got to figure out what they want. Easy peasy. So I'd like to use the crystal ball as a medium and try to contact the spirits that are obviously doing this.
Okay, so I think this would be a great place to use your talent as a medium.
All right.
So that would be an observation check. And I will say that the more successes you have, the more information I might be able to provide you.
So I should try to roll successes this time?
That's something.
Okay, so we got a success. If you want, you can push for additional successes, and all it does is it re-rolls the dice that did not come up 6, or we can just go with the 1. That's up to you. But it would mean taking a condition.
I think we'll leave it at the 1. I want to push, but at this point, Butterscotch doesn't just imagine this is run-of-the-mill spirit, so not going to take that much effort.
So as you stare, kind of running your hand over, the cloth that you had the crystal ball wrapped in, using it to clear its surface, and then gazing into it steadily.
Seductively.
There are flickers in your mind where you see some information that kind of just pops in. You see the first thing that you see is kind of an image that flashes very, very quickly of Sophia crying, dropping flowers onto a fresh grave. The next image that flashes through is a vision of Sammy angrily slamming a door and locking it as Sophia cries behind him. And then the last vision is of kind of a dark, it's a dark space with like an angular kind of close roof right above you with cobwebs. But at the edge of your vision is kind of a bright light and a shadow. And then just as you think it's completely done and you're kind of looking to kind of step away, from your entrance into the kind of piercing through the veil and seeing the other side, you hear a voice kind of whispering out of nowhere. You're the only one that hears it. And it's a deep, kind of raspy voice that says, I should not only loved King sleep, dreaming. I've seen it's none of you could. And then it kind of disappears on the wind.
What would those last 5 words? I've seen things, if you could.
Have seen things none of you could.
Okay.
And as you were doing that, let me have Dagmar and Samuel, Elin, and Butterscotch. I'd like all of you to do an observation roll for me, please. Just the 4 of you.
Wish these were an alpha order.
Yeah, it's by the associated attribute. Yeah. 1 success. 2 successes. And let's see if Elin can get me successes to add to that. Oh no, that was Elin right there.
No, I got none.
And there's Butterscotch. Okay. So, Elin doesn't hear this because she's still kind of recovering from being terrified of that wave of fear. But the other 3 of you, above you, you hear the floorboards, and it sounds like a pair of feet is running down a hallway. And it gets fainter, but you can hear it from above you.
Butterscotch. So the flavor on this butterscotch seance, he actually found it's not through sight. Spirits just need to be charmed. So he actually kisses the crystal ball and gets these flashes. So he'll, not knowing what the others are looking at, will say, will yell out. We'll stand up and try to look to everyone and yell out, "I've got a taste." Or one question, Jamie, about the vision.
Mm-hmm.
The fresh grave, was it in a graveyard? Okay.
Yeah, that was in a graveyard.
Yep. I've got a taste. I think someone died recently. Sophia was sad. Sammy locked a door. Something in a dark space. Maybe the attic?
Dagmar is going to say, the attic! Someone was running upstairs. Should we go? And she's going to point up the stairs.
I don't think we've been able to find anything down here, so we should.
And from a DM,
we should go.
From a GM perspective, using alchemy, it's much easier if everybody goes to the second floor.
Can we do that without?
Yeah. So what I will do is simply.
We have someone that's frozen, right?
So Gothi still is frozen. We'll say that if you guys want to kind of look him over, we will. It was just another round or two, so we can certainly let that fear have passed.
3. I have 3 more rounds.
I'm fine with you.
Okay, I was like, well, that's a bummer. I guess I'm not playing.
Well, I guess a mechanics question is around like everyone doing something, or is it like combat rounds?
It's kind of loosey goosey. So in this case, I was just kind of doing it in terms of a little bit of conversation going around the room. So that's why I'm saying enough time has passed. In combat, it's an entire initiative, all the way through the initiative order is a round. Yep.
Okay. I was assuming everyone had to do at least 4 things before I could do a thing.
I'm just gonna no, I wouldn't make it take that long. I am just gonna kind of put people over here real quick if we're going upstairs, because I'm gonna change the map here in a second.
Butterscotch will reattach his crystal ball lantern and offer Ellen an elbow. Maestra?
Just a note too, as things were happening, Samuel was walking around taking notes of everything he saw.
Okay. I'm just putting you guys at the top of the stairs, and it should have loaded into the second floor map for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I wanna pause here because I know that we were only running until 8 p.m. because we've got East Coast folks where it's 9 o'clock on our work night. I would say we're probably half of the way, maybe to 3/4 of the way through the mystery. We can continue on if folks want to, but I think just in terms of folks having to work tomorrow and that kind of thing, we can always reschedule another one of these and come back and finish up the mystery. There is more to find and more to learn to be able to figure out how you want to solve for this. And I don't want to rush you guys through it, especially since we've had some pretty great role play, and I'm having a blast. If you guys are too, I'm happy to schedule another session.
I personally don't want to rush it and would rather like take time and really fully explore all this in a second session, if that's okay with everybody else.
Agreed.
It's and I apologize for running a little bit long. I with 7 people with role play, I did not time this correctly.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot.
like,
It's a lot
There's
of
no
fun.
such thing as a one shot.
Yeah, if it had been 7 people with role play, and also we were all playing a system that we were super familiar with, maybe that would have been a different story. It's not your fault. Like,
I feel like that's the breaks, right? 1 shots are 2 shots, 2 shots are 3 shots. Like, it's just how it goes sometimes.
I also arrived late, so like that didn't help.
So what I will do is just kind of keep us here, and in the rather than keep everybody on right now trying to figure it out, I'll post in the Discord a couple of available nights, kind of around some of our travels and other games and that kind of stuff. It may not be any time super immediate, but I'll make sure we've got some options. We'll all vote on it, and then I'll schedule it up, and we'll come back and try to finish up A Dance of Dreams.
That sounds great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody.
Thanks for putting
Yeah,
this
this
on.
was really fun.
Yeah, you guys are
It
doing.
was so cool.
Yeah.
You guys are doing really well.
I like this one.
I like being
tension.
able to see the names of the audience.